Chapter 1082. The moment Zhou shattered the heaven-opening scripture of the highest elder, Zhou felt a strange change in his body. The mysterious sigh of the life providence automatically circulated. Slaughterer, which had fused with Zhou's body, continued to erupt with terrifying killing intent and essence energy. It was even more terrifying than when he fought the 8 life souls. As for Zhou's essence, vitality, and spirit, it erupted like a volcano. The energy produced by the 3 forces was unimaginable. Zhou had seen countless mythical creatures, excluding demonic neonate, who had the ability to transform into terror the mythical stage. All sorts of powerful mythical creatures, such as Torch Dragon and Tyrant Behemoth, couldn't unleash the power that Zhou was unleashing. Under the impetus of such a terrifying force, Zhou felt his body constantly transform. This transformation was different from any previous one. In the past, the transformations were within the range that Zhou could withstand, but this time, the energy produced by the evolution was no longer something his body could withstand. At the beginning of the evolution, Zhou was very worried that his body would explode because he couldn't withstand the power. In fact, that was indeed the case. In an instant, countless cracks appeared on Zhou's body like an eggshell that was about to shatter. At this critical juncture, the terrifying power surged in one direction. It was a point that seemed to exist and not exist. It was like the beginning of the universe, but also like the end of the world. The point seemed to exist in reality, but also seemed to exist in his consciousness. It was a point between reality and illusion. It was originally difficult to determine its existence, but when the terrifying power injected into the point gradually became clear. It constantly spun and changed, becoming more and more corporeal. However, this corporeal state was very abstract. It didn't really exist in reality, as though it was just Zhou's imagination. Gradually, the point grew larger and brighter, turning from a point into a wheel. Furthermore, there were many strange patterns on the wheel that kept changing. The patterns were very abstract. Sometimes, Zhou felt that the patterns resembled him, but at other times, they resembled Slaughterer. Sometimes, they resembled the life souls that Zhou had already destroyed. Primordial Human Sovereign, New Era, Supreme Hell King. It was as though there was a moment when some patterns resembled them, but upon closer inspection, they didn't look like them. It was hard to accurately describe what those patterns looked like. Even Zhou couldn't tell what shape the wheel was. Although it was a disc, it wasn't just a single surface. It had a spherical arc. It was said to be a sphere, but from a certain angle, it looked concave, like a coin that was constantly spinning and changing. Is this the Wheel of Fortune? Zhou could sense that the Wheel of Destiny was inextricably linked to him. It was like a part of his body, as important as organs like his brain and heart. However, it was different from the organs that grew on the body. It existed independently. What will my Wheel of Fortune be? Tyrant Behemoth's absolute strength isn't bad. Sherlong's bright torch vision world is the strongest, but those don't seem to have anything to do with me. Zhou didn't know what his Wheel of Destiny would be. This was because there was no experience for him to learn from. Perhaps he was the first person to advance to the mythical stage with his own strength. The 3 forces were still pouring into the Wheel of Destiny that was taking shape, but even the Wheel of Destiny couldn't bear such a powerful force. In particular, the energy that surged out of the sigh of the king was endless, like a galaxy in the universe. The energy that seeped out of the Wheel of Destiny seeped into Zhou's flesh and blood. Under the impact of the energy, his metamorphosing body seemed to undergo some inexplicable changes. Zhou and the Wheel of Destiny were constantly transforming, especially the patterns on the Wheel of Destiny. The changes seemed to slow down, and some lines had already stopped moving. Zhou inexplicably knew that his Wheel of Destiny was about to condense. This was the most critical moment. What kind of power will it be? If I can choose, I hope that the power of the Wheel of Destiny is related to space-time. Zhou felt that it was easier to understand the origins of the world with the power of space-time. to figure out the relationship between the dimension and Earth's universe. Perhaps space-time was a good starting point. However, he didn't see any patterns related to space-time on the Wheel of Destiny. On the condensed Wheel of Destiny, many lines had already solidified. The lines looked somewhat messy, and he couldn't tell what was going on. Joan tried to find some patterns, but the reality was that the lines didn't have any patterns. They were left and right like random scribbles. Most of them were curves, with almost no straight lines. When most of the lines were formed, Joan finally saw what the pattern was. At the same time, he was alarmed. It was a painting, a portrait of a woman. However, there was only one side of her face. One couldn't see her whole face. Moreover, it wasn't even complete yet. It was just an incomplete side of her face, but it was already breathtakingly beautiful. However, this wasn't the reason why Joan was alarmed. What really alarmed Joan was that he was too familiar with this woman's portrait. This was the portrait of the woman on the anchor. There was no mistake. Joan had seen it too many times and had thought about it too many times. Apart from the lack of an anchor, this was the portrait of the woman. As more and more lines were fixed, it proved Joan's guess. It was indeed identical to the portrait of the anchor woman he had seen. Apart from the lack of an anchor, there was no difference. Why? Why would that woman's pattern appear on my Wheel of Destiny? Countless thoughts flashed through Joan's mind. Seeing that the woman's portrait was about to be completed and that there were only a few strokes left, Joan suddenly felt extremely uncomfortable. That's my Wheel of Destiny. Why is there a woman on it? Joan felt an inexplicable emotion. This emotion seemed to infect the Wheel of Destiny. Just as the woman's portrait was about to be completed, the Wheel of Destiny suddenly lit up. The originally rapidly spinning Wheel of Destiny suddenly stopped. In the next instant, the Wheel of Destiny moved again. However, this time, it wasn't moving at all. It was actually reversing. As the Wheel of Destiny reversed, the portrait of the woman engraved on the Wheel of Destiny disappeared bit by bit. For some reason, Joan didn't know what the consequences would be, but he felt inexplicably pleased. Chapter 1083. The patterns on the Wheel of Destiny decreased bit by bit, and at that moment, the power of the sigh of the king suddenly surged out even more crazily. However, it was different from helping the Wheel of Destiny spin previously. The power of the sigh of the king was attempting to prevent the Wheel of Destiny from reversing. The sigh of the king's power was unimaginable. The Wheel of Destiny that was rapidly reversing immediately slowed down as though someone had slammed on the brakes. The Wheel of Destiny didn't completely stop spinning. It was still slowly spinning like the second hand of a clock. Every rotation produced a clicking sound. This sound wasn't the sound of the second hand ticking, but cracks appearing on the Wheel of Destiny as it continued spinning against the terrifying power of the sigh of the king. Crack! Crack! The Wheel of Destiny forcefully spun a few times, but several cracks had already appeared on its body. If this continued, the entire Wheel of Destiny would probably shatter. Joan felt his lifeblood churn as though his body was about to be torn apart. He knew very well that if the Wheel of Destiny shattered now, not only would he fail his advancement to the mythical stage, but he would also be sent back to the epic stage. It might even cause his body to suffer heavy injuries. It was hard to say if he could reach the mythical stage again. However, Joan didn't stop the Wheel of Destiny from spinning. He long knew that his life providence was somewhat different from ordinary people's. The sigh of the king far exceeded the power an ordinary life providence should have. Mythical creatures could be killed with a thought, and the various deities in the temple didn't dare accept its worship. One had to know that the creatures in the temple were very likely existences at the Terrorgrade. Just as the moon goddess had said, his life providence shouldn't have been like this. It was due to the influence of some external force that formed such a life providence. Without a doubt, the external force that affected him was the metal piece that recorded the lost Immortal Sutra. The existence that was like a female ghost that had been muttering in Joan's ear had appeared after he obtained the metal piece. After that, it had a huge impact on Joan. Zhou originally believed that he had completely resolved this problem with his advancement to the epic stage. However, from the looks of it, this problem hadn't been resolved. It was still affecting him. Otherwise, how could that woman's portrait appear on his wheel of destiny? Could the woman drawn on the anchor be the same person as the owner of the lost Immortal Sutra? Zhou guessed. The wheel of destiny was still spinning, but the sigh of the king was just too powerful. There was only one outcome if the wheel of destiny forcefully reversed. Despite knowing this outcome, Zhou had no intention of stopping. Perhaps it had something to do with Zhou when living alone at an early age. Ever since he could remember, he had basically lived alone, deciding what he should and shouldn't do. Even Zhou Lingfeng had never forced him to do anything. Now that the sigh of the king's power had forcefully interfered with his wheel of destiny's formation, coupled with his understanding of the sigh of the king, Zhou firmly supported the reversal of the wheel of destiny. This was because his personal feelings couldn't lie. When the wheel of destiny reversed, the comfortable feeling made him make a decision. Even if the wheel of destiny shattered and he wasted 2 years, even if he had to start over again, he would never compromise. He would not let the sigh of the king control his wheel of destiny and tell him what to do in the future. Only I can decide how I want to walk my own path. Zhou watched as the wheel of destiny kept cracking. He didn't act rashly or regret it. He was extremely calm. He was still young. As long as he was alive, he still had the capital to start over. If he didn't do it now, would he regret it when he was old? Kacha! Kacha! As though sensing Zhou's faith, the wheel of destiny spun even more vigorously. However, every rotation came at the cost of its own shattering. Seeing that the wheel of destiny was about to shatter, the sigh of the king forcefully controlled the wheel of destiny's power to retreat. The wheel of destiny finally regained its freedom as it spun faster. The woman's head mark on it was also wiped away. The damaged wheel of destiny continued absorbing energy during this period of time, repairing its damaged body. When the last line of the woman's head mark was wiped away, the wheel of destiny had long returned to normal. At that moment, the wheel of destiny stopped moving again. Zhou originally imagined that the wheel of destiny might spin properly again before condensing a mark that truly belonged to him. However, that wasn't the case. After the wheel of destiny stopped spinning, the power that erupted caused Zhou's body to undergo a mutation. Zhou clearly felt his stats increase, and he was no longer restricted by his 41 points. I've advanced to the mythical realm? But why isn't there anything on my wheel of destiny? Zhou was somewhat depressed as he hurriedly switched on his phone. He wanted to carefully look at his information and see what abilities the wheel of destiny without any marks had. Zhou was connected to the wheel of destiny by bloodline, so he could sense the power it possessed. However, the power was strange, preventing him from fully comprehending its profundities. However, after switching on his phone and dripping a drop of blood on it, a few notification bars immediately popped up on the screen. Advancing to the mythical stage. Activating bloodline function. Advancing to the mythical stage. Activating samsara function. Advancing to the mythical stage. Activating fertility function. Zhou was dumbfounded. The first two were fine. Although he didn't know what they were used for, he would eventually find out in the future. However, what the hell was this fertility function? Could it be that he couldn't have children before advancing to the mythical stage? Did he need a phone to decide if he could have children or not? However, Zhou wasn't in the mood to study the phone's new functions. All he wanted to do now was know what his wheel of destiny was. After opening the blood-colored avatar's information, the blood-colored avatar's latest resources were reflected in Zhou's eyes. Zhou, Mythical Life Providence, Sigh of the King Life Soul, Slaughter Wheel of Destiny. Not engraved, 1 spin, Strength, 42 Speed, 42 Constitution, 42 Essence Energy, 42. Zhou carefully looked at his various stats a few times. Breaking through his limits was within expectations. He still needed to absorb the results of various stats to raise his strength to the level of a true mythical creature. Slaughter didn't have the label of a perfect body. It wasn't because it had become weaker, But because with Zhou Wen's advancement, his life soul already possessed the strength of a mythical creature. The Sigh of the King was still the same, without any changes. After failing to stop the Wheel of Destiny, it didn't do anything. The various rare stats didn't change. Rare stats had to be absorbed by him through stat crystals. They wouldn't automatically increase just because he advanced to the mythical stage. Finally, there was Zhou Wen's Wheel of Destiny. Ignoring what kind of ability not engraved was, just the one spin left Zhou Wen very surprised. Zhou Wen had only seen the word "one revolution" on Demonic Neonate's Wheel of Destiny. However, Demonic Neonate's Wheel of Destiny was called One Revolution, and on his Wheel of Destiny, the word One Revolution seemed to be a unit of measurement. Chapter 1084. Not engraved. Fate is not engraved. It has yet to end. Zhou Wen looked at the annotation of his Wheel of Destiny and was still confused. He still didn't know what his Wheel of Destiny's ability was. Without bothering to see where he was, Zhou Wen entered the game. He wanted to see what use the Wheel of Destiny had in actual combat. At the same time, he could grind for some mythical dimensional crystals to raise his stats. Otherwise, he would still be at a disadvantage when facing mythical creatures directly. After entering Deer Terrace Pavilion, there were the most mythical creatures on the third floor. Although their abilities weren't strong, it was a good place to grind for mythical dimensional crystals. He first tried using the chi he encountered on the way, but the result left Zhou Wen puzzled. After the Wheel of Destiny was activated, it immediately began circulating. However, nothing happened. There was no elemental enhancement, no powerful attack power, and no special changes. What's going on? Zhou Wen was extremely depressed. He now suspected that something had gone wrong with his Wheel of Destiny because of the reversal, preventing him from obtaining the abilities the Wheel of Destiny should have. When he rushed all the way to the underground sea, the 9 demon blood true dragons hadn't respawned. Zhou Wen was about to rush over when he swept his gaze across the sapphire-like sky and couldn't help but be stunned. Approaching the sapphire sky meant death. Later, Zhou Wen observed it several times, but he failed to discover the secret in the sapphire sky. However, when Zhou Wen looked at the sapphire sky, he realized that there was a huge creature inside. The creature was so large that it was comparable to a dragon. It could be seen in any corner of the underground sea, but Zhou Wen had never seen such a huge creature before. Could it be that I was blind in the past? Zhou Wen immediately rejected this thought and became ecstatic. Of course, he wasn't blind in the past. There were only 2 possibilities left for him to not see the huge creature in the sapphire sky. One possibility was that the other party could turn invisible. The other possibility was that the creature was at the terror grade, which was why Zhou Wen couldn't see it. The former possibility wasn't high. If it was invisible, there should be other ways to sense its existence. However, Zhou Wen had used many methods in the past, but he had failed to discover it. Now that he had suddenly seen it, it was clearly abnormal. I can see creatures in their terror form? Zhou Wen's first reaction was to summon Demonic Neonate and let her enter her terror form. I can indeed see it. Zhou Wen looked at Demonic Neonate and nearly jumped up in joy. In the past, when Demonic Neonate's terror transformation, Zhou Wen looked at her as though she was air. But now, after Demonic Neonate's terror transformation, Zhou Wen could see her clearly. He realized that Demonic Neonate had indeed undergone quite a significant change. However, he hadn't seen in the past, so he didn't know what Demonic Neonate looked like after her terror transformation. After transforming into her terror form, the demonic aura on Demonic Neonate's body kept changing. Like a devil, it transformed into all sorts of terrifying shadows, as though it could devour anyone at any moment. As for the Demonic Neonate, she hadn't changed much. She was still wearing her ink-purple armor, holding the demonic sword in her arms, and a bell hanging from her waist as she stood there coldly. Zhou Wen stopped circulating the Wheel of Destiny, and Demonic Neonate's appearance immediately vanished from his eyes, as though she had turned invisible. Could it be that the power of my Wheel of Destiny allows me to see terror creatures? This seemed a little weak. but it can't be considered weak. Zhou felt that this ability wasn't bad. There were two keys to why the Terrorgrade was powerful. First, only the power of a Terrorgrade could injure a Terrorgrade. Therefore, no matter how strong a mythical stage was, it was almost impossible for them to defeat a Terrorgrade. Even if the stats weren't too different, the Terrorgrade was invincible in the mythical stage. This wasn't something that couldn't be resolved. Zhou had the Ice Dragon King's Terror item. By using those Terror items as weapons, he could injure a Terrorgrade. This had been confirmed by Night the Arch. Another terrifying aspect of the Terrorgrade was that most Terrorgrade creatures couldn't be seen by ordinary people. The unknown would deepen one's fear, making it impossible for ordinary creatures to fight Terrorgrade creatures. They could only be slaughtered unilaterally. However, it wasn't absolute. For example, Jade Rabbit's Terror transformation wouldn't be invisible to others. Instead, it would be purely gigantified. However, this type was relatively rare among Terrorgrade creatures. Ordinary creatures couldn't see what they looked like after their Terror transformation. Now that Zhou could see Terrorgrade creatures and had a Terror item that could injure Terrorgrade creatures, just these 2 points were enough to greatly increase his strength. In the future, he wouldn't be as passive as before when facing Terrorgrade creatures. Now that I think about it, my Wheel of Destiny seems rather useful. Zhou thought for a moment and realized that it was indeed very useful. However, he still felt that this wasn't all of Void's abilities. Zhou did some more experiments, but he didn't discover Void's other abilities. Knowing that such matters couldn't be rushed, Zhou passed through the underground sea and got demonic neonate to storm into Dear Terra's pavilion. She killed all the fake fairies and immortals and cleared the 3-story building. Finally, a 59 valued strength crystal and 62 valued essence energy crystal dropped. He directly refined and absorbed them, instantly raising his 2 stats. Zhou didn't continue grinding because he still didn't know where he was. Glimmer's teleportation ability was long-distance interstellar teleportation. It could only teleport to a designated planet, but its accuracy wasn't high enough. Now that he was in a desert, Zhou had no idea where he was. In the past, with Glimmer and New Era, it wasn't difficult to determine his location. However, now that all his life providences and life souls had been shattered by Zhou, he naturally didn't have his previous abilities. He attempted to switch essence energy arts and realized that there was no reaction. It was as though he had never cultivated them before. Is the essence energy art I've been cultivating for so long crippled, just like that? Zhou shook his head slightly. Forget it. I'll think of a way to figure out where I am first. Zhou used Truth Listener to expand its range as much as possible to figure out where he was, but all Truth Listener could hear was Shyamo. There was only a mountain in the distance in front of Zhou. The mountain was somewhat strange. In this endless desert, there wasn't a single cactus to be seen, much less a water source. However, the mountain was lush with vitality. Zhou sized it up for a while and didn't walk in the direction of the mountain. Instead, he summoned the earth elemental beast and burrowed in the opposite direction. Although Zhou was powerful now, he didn't dare barge into mysterious places without the protection of the heaven-opening scripture of the highest elder. However, the earth elemental beast burrowed hundreds of kilometers. When it emerged, Zhou was alarmed to discover that he had already arrived at the foot of the mountain. Chapter 1085. Zhou looked up and saw a monument erected in front of the mountain. On it were the words Paradise Mountain. Zhou immediately knew where he was. Back when he followed his eldest senior brother, Liu Yun, to the Taklamakan Desert, Liu Yun had once told him that there were 4 terrifying dimensional zones in the desert. Death Valley Netherworld City, Endless Sea of Stars, Paradise Mountain. Zhou had already been to Netherworld City and the Endless Sea of Stars. He had only heard of Paradise Mountain's name, but he never expected to see it when he teleported back. Since he couldn't leave, Zhou decided not to. He released Ice Maiden and Jade Rabbit and carried demonic neonate as he carefully sized up the Paradise Mountain stone monument. At the bottom of the stone tablet, There was a small palm pattern carved on it. It's a waste not to go down a dungeon that's delivered to my doorstep. Zhou took out his phone and snapped a picture of the tiny palm symbol. He immediately entered the download screen. I heard from Lu Yun that no one who enters Paradise Mountain can come out alive. I wonder what's so mysterious about this mountain. Now that I don't have the heaven-opening scripture of the highest elder, it's not easy to wander around. I'll wait for the game to download and scout the way in-game. Just as Zhou was thinking, he heard a flirtatious voice coming from Paradise Mountain. Looking up, he saw a group of bikini-clad beauties laughing and having fun. Their beautiful legs made him dizzy. Zhou sat outside the mountain and watched the beauties play. His body seemed to have an involuntary urge to go over. Thankfully, his willpower was firm. With a thought, he made the urge vanish. With a thought, he circulated the wheel of destiny and looked at the beauties. His pupils immediately constricted. Those weren't beauties. They were just extremely large, ugly, and evil gray rats. What was even stranger was that the gray rats stood like humans. They wore gray cloaks, and their eyes swirled with an evil glint. Upon seeing this scene, Zhou summoned the bronze sparrow sword. The flaming blade tore out of its scabbard and flew into Paradise Mountain, instantly killing a few evil gray-robed rats on the spot. A large number of gray-robed rats crawled out of the Bliss Mountain forest. Their eyes shone brightly as they formed a huge psychic force field. The more gray-robed rats there were, the stronger the psychic force field would be. Zhou immediately understood why so many people had come to Paradise Mountain in the past, but none of them had returned alive. These gray-clothed rats were good at mental attacks, and they could also concentrate their mental strength together, which was similar to the joint attack of the musical note sprites. However, these gray-robed rats were even more terrifying. Mental attacks were difficult to defend against. Furthermore, they were at the epic stage. Furthermore, there were many of them. Even a mythical creature would easily lose themselves if they suffered a mental attack from them. In the beginning, the bronze sparrow sword wasn't affected. It was still killing the gray-robed rats and igniting flames everywhere on Paradise Mountain. However, when the 13 red-robed rats appeared on Paradise Mountain, the bronze sparrow sword was affected. Not only did it stop its slaughter, but it even turned around and charged at Zhou. Nice, 13 mythical rats. This Paradise Mountain is something. Don't tell me there's another Terrorgrade existence. Zhou felt immense mental pressure as he thought. However, his willpower was extremely tenacious to begin with. Now that he had the Wheel of Destiny activated, he could see the true bodies of the rats. He wouldn't be fooled no matter what. With a wave of his hand, he grabbed the bronze sparrow sword that had turned against him. However, the mental strength of the rats was rather powerful. With countless epic gray-robed rats and the 13 red-robed rats working together, even the Terrorgrade Jade Rabbit was affected. Jade Rabbit's eyes emitted red hearts as it slowly walked towards Undying Mountain. Wake it up for me. Zhou felt embarrassed for Jade Rabbit. It was at the Terrorgrade after all, but it had been lured by a bunch of rats. Ice Maiden summoned a huge ice cube and smashed it on a Jade Rabbit's head. Only then did Jade Rabbit wake up. Although Jade Rabbit is a pure strength-type companion beast, and its mental strength isn't its specialty, it's at the Terrorgrade after all. To be able to affect it, these rats' mental strength skills are no trifling matter. Zhou saw that Ice Maiden seemed to have the ability to restrain such mental strength skills, so he got her to ascend Paradise Mountain and kill the rats first. Ice Maiden wasn't in the mood to play with these rats. After transforming into her terror form, she used Ice Blast to blast most of the gray-robed rats into ice shards. 7 or 8 of the 13 red-robed rats died, and a few were injured. When Zhou saw the dimensional crystals and companion eggs on the ground, he hurriedly summoned a group of musical sprites and got them to go in and pick up the dimensional crystals and companion eggs. Seeing that the remaining red-robed rats were about to escape, Ice Maiden waved her hand and a cold gust of air surged out, freezing them into ice sculptures. Seeing that the rats were all dead, Ice Maiden was about to return when she suddenly heard an ear-piercing scream coming from the top of Paradise Mountain. Squeak! The sound was extremely sharp. Ice Maiden was in Paradise Mountain, and when she heard the sound, her expression changed slightly. Her body emitted an icy glow as though she was resisting some terrifying force. The musical note sprites that Zhou, when had released into Paradise Mountain, seemed to have lost their souls as they floated towards the top of the mountain. Zhou stood outside Paradise Mountain and felt his mind go adrift. He almost couldn't help but walk into Paradise Mountain. Thankfully, his willpower was too strong. He was only slightly dazed for a moment before he immediately recovered. Jade Rabbit was struck again, and Zhou directly sent it back into the Chaos Bead. Zhou originally imagined that he couldn't use the Chaos Bead without the First Order of Chaos, but he realized that his essence energy could still activate the Chaos Bead without being affected. This made Zhou suspect that it wasn't that the essence energy arts couldn't be used, but that they were temporarily unusable for some reason. Ice Maiden's eyes focused as she rushed towards the top of Paradise Mountain. Soon, she heard a terrifying collision sound coming from the top of the mountain. Seeing that there weren't many rats left on Paradise Mountain, Zhou decided to walk in himself, planning to pick up the dimensional crystals and companion eggs. It was especially so for the dimensional crystals. Zhou happened to need to replenish his stats. The 13 red-robed rats had dropped 5 stat crystals and a companion egg. They were perfect for replenishing. Even a mythical creature couldn't withstand the psyche influence from the mountaintop. However, Zhou was still able to maintain himself. After walking into Paradise Mountain, he picked up all the stat crystals and absorbed them without any regard for the consequences, allowing his stats to rapidly increase. Just as Zhou picked up the companion egg, he suddenly saw a stream of light slash down from the mountaintop. It was an ancient sword with an antique charm. If Zhou hadn't been able to see the power of the Terrorgrade, he probably wouldn't have known how he died. He would have been killed by the ancient sword. Chapter 1086. Clang. The demonic sword automatically unsheathed and blocked the ancient sword. To Zhou, surprise, the demonic sword didn't gain the upper hand in the clash with the ancient sword. It looked like they were evenly matched. One had to know that not only had the demonic neonate transformed the demonic sword, but it also had the power of Grim Demon. Grim Demon was already an extremely powerful Terrorgrade creature, but with the augmentation of such power, it was only able to fight the ancient sword to a draw. The ancient sword's strength was astonishing. Death Valley, Netherworld City, Endless Sea of Stars, Paradise Mountain. I've already entered Netherworld City and the Endless Sea of Stars. There's a great horror in Netherworld City. If one doesn't suffer all the punishments, one won't be able to see the true Netherworld City. The Endless Sea of Stars also has a terrifying existence like the planet Devourer. Now, such a powerful creature has appeared in Paradise Mountain. As it fights Ice Maiden, it can also split the ancient sword to fight the demonic sword. The 4 mysterious dimensional zones in the desert don't look simple. Zhou stood there in his shell dragon armor to watch the battle. The shockwaves from the battle between the 2 swords affected Zhou, causing him to retreat uncontrollably. His feet plowed 2 deep grooves in the ground. Amidst such an impact, Zhou discovered a strange phenomenon. Under the impact of the terrifying sword beam, Zhou realized that cracks had appeared on his Wheel of Destiny. Zhou originally imagined that the Wheel of Destiny had been damaged by the Terrorgrade power, or that the injuries it had suffered when reversing the life hadn't fully recovered. After encountering a strong collision, it cracked open again. However, he soon realized that this wasn't the case. This was because Zhou sensed sword intent in the cracks that gradually appeared. It was a familiar yet unfamiliar sword intent. 3,000 sword intents. Zhou was pleasantly surprised. The sword intent was clearly 3,000 sword intents, but it was different from 3,000 sword intents. It was even more powerful and terrifying. It was a true mythical sword intent. The power of Sword Pill is still there. Then, is the power of the other life providences and life souls also there? Zhou looked at the cracks on the Wheel of Destiny and realized that the cracks were swords. All the swords had their tips pointing outwards, condensing into the shape of sword pill. After sword pill completely formed on the wheel of destiny, Zhou immediately felt an uncontrollable, terrifying sword intent erupt from the wheel of destiny. The sword essence was like an emperor descending upon the world. At the same time, a strong sword chi exploded from the fate plate. The ancient sword seemed to be affected by Zhou sword intent. It abandoned the demonic sword and flew towards Zhou with a resplendent and terrifying sword beam. It instantly appeared in front of Zhou. Zhou felt the sword chi in his body fill up to the point of exploding. He couldn't help but extend his hand and form a sword with his index and middle finger. He stabbed out ruthlessly. Boom! Sword chi burst out his finger and condensed into a sword pellet, colliding fiercely with the ancient sword. Sword pill was shattered by the ancient sword, but the ancient sword was also deflected by the force of sword pill. It deviated from its original trajectory and flew past Zhou's cheek. Zhou was pleasantly surprised. Sword pill and the abilities of the chi refinement cultivators were still there, but the way they existed was different from before. Furthermore, they were stronger. If it was a simulation in the past, they had now fused into Zhou's body and become an instinct. They were no longer simulated skills. Zhou wasn't happy for long when he suddenly realized that the sword pill's engravings on the Wheel of Destiny were rapidly disappearing. Soon, they vanished, and Zhou could no longer use its power. Without the temptation of the sword intent, the ancient sword was no longer interested in Zhou. After the demonic sword caught up to it, it continued fighting. What's going on? I clearly engraved sword pill on the Wheel of Destiny just now. It has the unique skill of the Wheel of Destiny. Why is it gone again? Zhou frowned in thought as he carefully recalled what had happened. He immediately had some ideas. Zhou focused and calmed his mind as he recalled his insights from cultivating the chi refinement art and his understanding of sword pill. With a thought, he engraved his Wheel of Destiny. Indeed, with his will and the influx of a large amount of essence energy, engravings appeared on the Wheel of Destiny again. Finally, the engravings turned into the shape of sword pill. However, this sword pill's appearance was somewhat different from before. This was the sword pill that Zhou had engraved according to his understanding. It was somewhat different from before. Engraving sword pill consumed a large amount of essence energy, but with Slaughter's help, the expenditure of essence energy wasn't a problem. Once sword pill was formed, the sword intent that looked down on the world appeared again, attracting the ancient sword's attention. Seeing the ancient sword slash at him again, Zhou stabbed out sword pill again. Boom! This time, Zhou was in an even worse state. He was sent flying and rolled down Paradise Mountain like a ball. However, sword pill still managed to block the ancient sword strike. It shattered itself, but it didn't injure Zhou. Just as Zhou had expected, the moment sword pill shattered, the sword pill mark on the Wheel of Destiny vanished. My Wheel of Destiny is called no engraving. It's a very difficult task to leave a mark on it. Even if I engrave it, it's only temporary. It can't exist for long. In other words, even if I have the Wheel of Destiny's ability, it's only temporary. Every time I use it, I have to engrave it myself. However, in that case, since I can engrave sword pill, can I also engrave other life souls? Zhou had mixed feelings. Although he had finally discovered a way to use the Wheel of Destiny, this method was a little strange. He had to engrave it himself every time he used it. If he was in a last-minute battle, how could he have a time? However, Zhou soon thought of something that excited him so much that he almost immediately wanted to verify it. In the past, he couldn't circulate 2 essence energy arts at the same time, so he couldn't use 2 life providences and 2 life souls at the same time. But now it was different. If those primordial energy art abilities had already become his instinct, could he carve 2 life will patterns at the same time and use 2 or even more abilities? Without any hesitation, Zhou immediately used his mind to engrave the Wheel of Destiny again. This time, he wasn't drawing sword pill, but primordial human sovereign. He wanted to see if he could draw another life will pattern or if he could only draw sword pill. The outcome delighted Zhou. as Zhou, when used his understanding and insights of the ancient Sovereign Sutra, he indeed drew a pattern similar to primordial human sovereign on the Wheel of Destiny. The reason why it was similar was because the life wheel pattern wasn't the previous primordial human sovereign, but an upgraded version of primordial human sovereign. It had true mythical strength. As the ancient sovereign pattern appeared on the Wheel of Destiny, a figure of light appeared in front of Zhou. Without a doubt, it was the upgraded version of primordial human sovereign. Chapter 1087. Zhou suppressed the excitement in his heart and continued carving on the blank spots on the Wheel of Destiny. This time, he was still carving Sword Pill. Bit by bit, Sword Pill was engraved on the Wheel of Destiny. As for the ancient sovereign symbol on the other side, it didn't disappear. When the Sword Pill symbol was completed and Sword Pill tore out of his fingers again, Zhou nearly moaned in bliss. Looking at the Sword Pill, an ancient sovereign that existed at the same time, Zhou felt that the goddess of luck hadn't abandoned him. Thank you, Holy Mother, Jade Emperor, God of Fortune. Just as Zhou was feeling excited, the ancient sovereign's projection suddenly vanished. It turned out that the ancient sovereign symbol on the Wheel of Destiny was vanishing and was no longer complete. Only then did Zhou realize gloomily that even if he didn't fight, the marks on the Wheel of Destiny would quickly disappear. There's really nothing wrong with not carving the word, not carving. I really can't carve anything. Zhou was somewhat helpless. Although he had the possibility of using multiple abilities at the same time, the Wheel of Destiny's characteristics were too strange, making things a little troublesome. Is there any way to preserve the engravings forever? Zhou felt that he should spend some time to study it in the future. Even if he could only maintain it for a little longer, it would be a huge improvement for him. Grim Demon fought the ancient sword, while Ice Maiden fought an unknown creature on the mountaintop. However, Zhou had fun drawing at the foot of the mountain. After all sorts of tests, Zhou already knew that he could draw the previous 8 life souls. Furthermore, as long as his insights were different, what he drew would be different every time. The deeper Zhou's insights, the stronger the Wheel of Destiny he drew. The longer he could stay on it, the more powerful it would be. The only thing Zhou couldn't draw was the marks that the Lost Immortal Sutra should have. This was because he knew the least about the Lost Immortal Sutra. The Lost Immortal Sutra didn't need him to comprehend it, nor did he need to cultivate it. It would circulate on its own. As long as his stats reached a certain level, he could advance directly. It was clearly the foundation of Zhou's essence energy art, but he knew the least about it. If I can carve the Lost Immortal Sutra's marks on the Wheel of Destiny one day, will those marks disappear again? A thought flashed through Zhou's mind. There was no answer, but Zhou had a direction to become stronger. The deeper his understanding of primordial energy arts, the longer the marks left on the Wheel of Destiny would be. Perhaps one day, when he was strong enough, those marks would exist forever. After understanding the situation, Zhou focused his attention on the battle at Bliss Mountain. The demonic sword and the ancient sword were still entangled, and the victor had yet to be determined. On the mountaintop, the Ice Maiden seemed to be gradually at a disadvantage. Zhou circulated the Wheel of Destiny and drew the heaven-opening scripture before flying to a spot relatively close to the mountaintop. Soon, Zhou saw the creature fighting Ice Maiden. It was also a rat man, but it looked more human than the gray-robed and red-robed rats from before. It was wearing a white suit, gold-rimmed glasses, and a white top hat decorated with black thread. It looked very strange. What the hell is this? Zhou was alarmed when he saw this. This was the first time he had seen a dimensional creature in such a form. What was even stranger was that not only did the rat man possess powerful psyche skills, but its movement techniques were also extremely strange. It was like smoke and fog, and in its hand there was a gun. It wasn't an ancient spear, but a modern firearm. It was in the shape of a revolver and looked a little like a Smith & Wesson 500, but it was bigger and had a thicker barrel. Most of the gun was silver-white metal, and a small portion had gray patterns. It had an indescribable beauty. Ice Maiden could resist the Ratman's psyche attacks, but the pistol caused her a lot of trouble. She seemed to be afraid of the bullets in the gun and didn't dare be hit by them. She would dodge every time, so she was at a disadvantage. It looked like she was having a hard time holding on. Zhou couldn't tell what kind of power the bullet had. Although he could see the power of the Terrorgrade, the bullet was too fast. His vision couldn't keep up. Ice Maiden, come back. As Zhou spoke, he summoned Banana Fairy. At the same time, he quickly retreated and left the Bliss Mountain area. Firstly, the heaven-opening scripture of the highest elder had already vanished from the life wheel. Secondly, Banana Fairy's attacks didn't differentiate between friend and foe, so staying there would only be a hindrance. Ice Maiden knew how powerful Banana Fairy was. Even Grim Demon had been blown away by her, so she was even worse. The strange rat didn't know how powerful Banana Fairy was. When it saw a beautiful fairy float over on a banana leaf, it picked up its phone and fired 3 shots at Banana Fairy. Banana Fairy pouted and blew out a gust of supreme wind. Just like the bullet time in the Matrix, the 3 bullets suddenly slowed down. Zhou finally saw the bullets clearly. The bullet head looked like it was made of crystal, but it looked somewhat strange. It was like a small ghost that had curled up into a ball. It was extremely evil. Not only did the 3 bullets slow down, but they even formed frost. In the blink of an eye, the 3 bullets were shot back in the wind. The strange-looking rat was also blown away. As there was nothing blocking nearby, the rat and bullets were sent flying into the distance with the yellow sand that filled the sky. Soon, they vanished. I wonder if the rat is dead or not. Zhou watched as the rat was blown away. He wanted to pick up a dimensional crystal, but he didn't know where to pick it up. Even if it was really dead, by the time he rushed over, the dimensional crystal might have already been taken away by other creatures. Clang! The ancient sword that was fighting the demonic sword suddenly lost control and fell from the sky, landing on ground. Furthermore, it no longer had a terror form. This sword isn't a dimensional creature. Zhou immediately realized that there was something wrong with the ancient sword. If the ancient sword was a dimensional creature, it was still acceptable for it to be able to fight the demonic sword for so long despite being a little terrifying. However, if it was only a weapon, it was somewhat abnormal for it to be able to fight the demonic sword for so long under the control of the rat. After all, the rat itself didn't seem that strong. Zhou walked close and carefully sized up the ancient sword that had fallen to the ground. He hadn't taken a closer look before, but now that he was carefully sizing it up, he realized that it looked somewhat odd. It didn't look like gold, jade, iron, or steel. Furthermore, it didn't seem to have a blade. It was as though it was sheathed in a scabbard, but he couldn't see the opening of the scabbard. It looked like it was one piece. The ancient sword remained motionless on the ground. He was certain that the rat man had been controlling it previously. Now, it was unknown if the rat was too far away from it, or if the rat was already dead. In any case, the sword was no longer under his control. Zhou carefully sized up the ancient sword and saw the words engraved on the hilt. When he looked at it, his eyes widened as his pupils constricted like needles. Chapter 1088. The hilt of the sword was engraved with the words Immortal Culling. Is this thing real or fake? Zhou widened his eyes as he looked at the ancient sword. He couldn't believe that it was the real Immortal Culling sword. If the words Immortal Culling were looked at alone, it wasn't anything impressive. It was even a little tacky. However, if the word sword was added behind the 2 words, it would be a little terrifying. If there were 3 more celestial slaying sword, celestial trapping sword, and celestial ending sword beside this sword, it would be even more terrifying. The legendary 4 immortal vanquishing swords were terrifying existences that could truly kill immortals and demons. They were the most powerful Dharma treasures of the legendary sect master. It was difficult to describe how powerful these 4 swords were. In comparison, an existence like the 9-tailed fox in Chess Mountain was no different from a chicken waiting to be slaughtered in front of the real Immortal Culling sword. Any one of the powerful existences these 4 swords had slain could beat up the 9-tailed fox. Ignoring the 4 swords, Zhou estimated that he would be invincible on Earth if he could fully grasp any one of them. Of course, the premise was that this sword was really the immortal culling sword. This ancient sword might only have the same name and not the legendary one. Zhou didn't dare take the risk. He summoned Tyrant Behemoth and got it to pick up the sword. The immortal culling sword didn't react at all. Tyrant Behemoth brandished it twice, but it didn't discover any special energy fluctuations. It didn't have the aura from before. How did the Rat Man control it? With a thought, Zhou summoned the earth elemental beast and chased after the rat with the immortal culling sword. Regardless of whether the sword was the real immortal culling sword or not, it possessed rather powerful strength. If he could figure out how to control it, it would be of great help. Banana Fairy's fan had blown the rat far away. Zhou followed the huge wind marks that the wind had created to search for it. After running for hundreds of kilometers, he finally couldn't see the wind marks, but he didn't see the strange rat man. He's not dead. Zhou used Truth Listener to search the vicinity, but he didn't find any traces of the rat man. He wanted to return to Paradise Mountain. But who would have thought that after walking for a long time, they wouldn't even see a shadow of the Bliss Mountain? It was as if the Bliss Mountain had vanished into thin air. Zhou knew that it would probably be difficult to find Bliss Mountain again. All he could do was switch on his phone and successfully download the Bliss Mountain dungeon. He entered Bliss Mountain in-game. There were many gray-robed rats in-game, so Zhou had a great time killing them. Soon, another 13 red-robed rats appeared. Zhou wasn't in the mood to waste time with them. He got demonic neonate to release the demonic sword and kill them all. A few dimensional crystals dropped. After absorbing them, Zhou, when strength reached 67, speed reached 71, constitution reached 54, and primordial energy reached 70. However, Zhou's mind was still on the strange rat man. Without carefully looking at his stats, he brought demonic neonate up the mountain. What puzzled Zhou was that he didn't see the strange rat at the top of Paradise Mountain. There was a hole at the top of the mountain, about the size of a bowl. Looking inside, it was bottomless, as if there was no end to it. Zhou summoned the earth elemental beast down, but after crawling for a long time, he failed to reach the bottom. It was as though there was no bottom. This is really strange. What is going on? Zhou knew that there was definitely something wrong with the hole. Otherwise, with the earth elemental beast speed, it would have already drilled to the other side of the earth in half a day. He thought of all sorts of solutions and even got Banana Fairy to pour wind in, but the terrifying supreme wind vanished without a trace. He didn't know how deep the hole was. Zhou had no choice but to take the immortal culling sword with him and head back to Luoyang. Along the way, Zhou grinded all sorts of mythical creatures in-game. He planned on raising his stats first. After all, having a strong body was fundamental. It would also give him an advantage in battle. On the cube's arena, a white beam of light descended from the sky. In the white beam of light was a faint shadow. After the shadow descended, it landed on Juyue's body before disappearing in a flash. What was that? I didn't see it clearly. Was it a companion beast summoned by Juyue? Is it some kind of skill? Everyone was talking about it, but they couldn't figure out what it was. Zhongzia looked at Juyue and frowned. Juyue's pupils turned white. Although there weren't many changes elsewhere, his aura was clearly different. Who are you? Zhongzia asked Juyue. You aren't worthy of knowing my name, Juyue replied indifferently as he looked at Zhongzia. With that said, most people understood what was going on. Holy SH asterisk T, that works too? Aren't those fellows from the dimension too shameless? Isn't it enough to take turns fighting? They actually got a substitute to fight? How F asterisk king disgusting. Although I don't like people like you, I hate such shameless fellows even more. Yet kill him. The Federation was in an uproar. Even the demons overseas didn't have a good expression on their faces. They really don't treat us humans as humans. Yusuji now muttered to herself with a cold expression. If she could go on stage now, she didn't care which faction you belonged to. She wanted to help him. There were many people who had the same thoughts as Yusuji now, but humans weren't dimensional creatures. No one could break the cube's rules. However, Zhongzia didn't show any emotions. He only said calmly, "All right. Anyway, I don't have the habit of remembering the names of losers." Ignorance is also a form of happiness. Cherish your last moments of happiness. Jiue wasn't angry as he slowly raised his palm. There wasn't a shocking glow on his palm. With just a casual grab, Zhong Zia, who was 1,000 meters away, somehow appeared in front of him and was grabbed by the neck. It felt as though the space between the two of them had disappeared. Crack! Ye's neck was snapped, and his head fell to the ground. However, Ye's severed body erupted into a ball of white fog as he turned into a headless puppet that landed on the ground. The spectators broke out into a cold sweat before feeling relieved. Now, most humans hoped that you would win. Jiue seemed to have expected this. He grabbed again, and Ye, who had just appeared in front of Jiue again. The space between the two of them vanished. Clang! This time, it was Ye's true body. He raised primordial immortal sword and blocked Jiue's palm. However, Jiue's palm grabbed the sword in his neck, lifting him up along with the sword. Chapter 1089. Zhong Zia's body suddenly turned into white fog and escaped from Jiue's hands. Following that, the two of them entered a terror state. Ordinary humans couldn't see them, so they didn't know how the battle was going. However, from the short battle, Zhong Zia was clearly at a disadvantage. Jiue's spatial powers left a deep impression on him. Furthermore, the dimensional creature that possessed Jiue had a powerful aura. It made people feel like Zhong Zia wasn't that powerful in front of him. It was like a child fighting an adult. At that moment, Zhou had already walked out of the desert and arrived in a city that had been abandoned by humans. When he passed by the cube, he happened to see this scene and stopped to watch the battle between the two. Others couldn't see a Terrorgrade battle, but Zhou could see it clearly the moment his wheel of destiny moved. Zhou was somewhat worried. Zhong Zia's situation wasn't good. Jiue's spatial powers weren't just powerful. As their strength attributes weren't exactly the same, there was no way to directly compare their strength. However, from a general perspective, Jiue didn't surpass the Terrorgrade. He was still at the Terrorgrade. However, his usage and understanding of spatial powers had reached a terrifying realm. It was far from what the original Jiue could compare with. Zhong Zia was also far inferior. Those fellows from the dimension are really shameless. They actually let a calamity-grade creature control Jiue's body and strength. Although their strength levels are the same, their techniques and realm are much stronger. The guardian that Zhong Zia fused with clearly had a portion of spatial powers. His opponent was also spatial, but his understanding was deeper and stronger than his. The opponent knew Zhong Zia's various abilities and knew how to deal with him. However, Zhong Zia knew very little about Jiue's abilities. This difference in information will result in a huge disadvantage. Zhou saw through Zhong Zia's danger. Furthermore, Zhong Zia had exposed too many of his abilities in the previous battles, allowing his opponent to understand him better. Zhong Zia's every move seemed to be within Jiue's expectations. The battle was extremely difficult, and more injuries appeared on his body. If it wasn't for his various escape techniques and avatars, he would have long been killed by Jiue. However, escape techniques had their limits. It was impossible for him to keep using avatars. It was obvious that Zhong Zia's situation wasn't good. Just as Zhong Zia escaped, he suffered another heavy blow. The terrifying spatial powers tore through Zhong Zia's body. Boom! Zhong Zia's body slammed into the arena, and he left his terror state. His white robe was already dyed red with blood, and there was a wound on his chest that almost spanned across his entire chest. He used his bloodied hand to hold the hilt of the sword and supported his body to stand up. His body was still a little shaky, and his wound was still bleeding. It seemed that the situation was not good. This is not fair. A young girl clenched her fists and shouted angrily. There were many people who thought the same as her, but there was nothing they could do. Even if they knew it was unfair, they were powerless to change it. There was no absolute fairness in this world. Jiue also escaped his terror transformation. He looked at the blood-covered Zhong Zia and said, It's already lucky that you didn't die from this strike. Yet, you didn't take the opportunity to retreat. You were really courting death. With that said, Jiyue prepared to attack and kill Zhongzia. Your calamity great? Zhongzia held the hilt of his sword with both hands, supporting his body so that he wouldn't fall. You're not that ignorant, Jiyue replied. The calamity grade is indeed very strong, Zhongzia continued. That's a level you humans can't imagine. It's also a power you can't understand. In my eyes, you're no different from an ant. Therefore, don't try to be enemies with us. That will only bring you humans a calamity, Jiyue said matter-of-factly. What's a pity? Zhongzia suddenly sighed. What's a pity? Jiyue asked with a frown. Unfortunately, you made a mistake, Zhongzia said. Oh, what mistake? Jiyue looked at Zhongzia with interest. From his point of view, Zhongzia was like a joke. You shouldn't have come here, Zhongzia said seriously. Why shouldn't I be here? Jiyue continued asking. Compared to killing you at your current level, I want to kill you with the strength of a calamity grade. Therefore, you shouldn't have come here. Zhongzia remained very serious. He didn't have any intention of joking. However, Jiyue laughed as though he had heard an extremely funny joke. Do you think you have a chance of killing me just because we're both at the terror grade? How ignorant must you be to have such thoughts? Even if our strength is about the same, our actual combat abilities are worlds apart because of the difference in realm and understanding. If I want to kill you, I only need to move a finger. Even if you want to self-destruct, it's useless. You can't injure me. Jiyue's words were a blow to everyone, but no one could refute him. Ya, who was almost considered the top among humans, was suppressed to the point of being unable to resist the dimensional creature that possessed Jiyue. Everyone fell silent. They had nowhere to vent their anger. The one being humiliated on the stage was Ya, but Jiyue's words were also a form of contempt for the entire human race. However, Zhongzia didn't show any special emotions. He looked at Jiyue and said, Not bad. Your realm is very high, and your understanding of strength and laws far surpasses mine. Unfortunately, you don't understand humans. Why should I understand humans? Jiyue was no longer in the mood to continue talking to Zhongzia. He raised his hand and grabbed at Zhongzia. The space between the two of them vanished without a trace. Zhongzia arrived in front of him as though he had handed his neck to him. Zhongzia's eyes gradually burned as Jiyue grabbed his neck. His eyes gradually turned red as he continued. If you understand humans, you should know that humans are a race that constantly makes mistakes and learns. For people like you who have a lifespan of tens of thousands of years or even eternal life, you won't understand how powerful the learning ability of humans who only have a lifespan of a few decades is. With that said, Zhongzia's aura suddenly intensified. Terrifying essence energy erupted like a volcano as it shook away Jiyue's hand that was gripping his neck. 10,000 years ago, I wasn't born. 10,000 years later, you stand in front of me like a giant. Zhongzia's aura became more and more terrifying. He had already entered his terror form again and vanished from everyone's sight. However, his crazy voice still echoed. Everything that 10,000 years have given you is just a moment of greatness. The real you is just a fool who has lived a little longer. Chapter 1090. These words were extremely arrogant, but the humans watching felt their blood boil. Well said. Nice scolding. Xiao Luchuan couldn't help but praise. He's just an idiot who has lived a little longer. Haha, what an interesting fellow. Zhang Chuanxiu laughed until tears were about to fall. I suddenly feel that it wouldn't be bad to have such a friend. Dugugu, who had always been silent, suddenly said. Unfortunately, he said he doesn't make friends anymore, Zhang Chuanxiu said. I treat him as a friend. What does it have to do with me if he's willing to make friends or not? Dugugu said expressionlessly. That's true. Zhang Chuanxiu realized that he couldn't refute Dugugu. That's right. I also want to shamelessly acknowledge such an interesting person as a friend, Xiao Luchuan said with a smile. As for Jiyue, he was extremely furious. He instantly entered a terror state and wanted to kill Zhong Zia completely. Zhong Zia's injuries were very serious. Those injuries weren't fake. If he continued fighting, it would be too dangerous. However, Zhong Zia had no intention of giving up. He fought Jiyue again. However, this time, although Jiyue still had the advantage, he wasn't able to completely suppress Zhong Zia like before. Zhong Zia's combat strength was constantly increasing. No, it shouldn't be said to be his combat strength. His strength didn't increase, but his understanding of strength and realm were getting stronger and stronger. They were growing at an unbelievable speed. No, impossible. Jiyue almost couldn't believe that such a thing would happen. In such a short period of time, Zhong Zia seemed to have completely understood and absorbed the various abilities and realms he had previously displayed. The methods he had used previously were no longer effective against Zhong Zia. Jiyue had to use a new ability or a higher understanding of the laws of strength to continue suppressing Zhong Zia. However, once he used it, it was no longer effective against Zhong Zia. This was because Zhong Zia had already understood that power and realm. They were both spatial elemental and terregrade. The advantage Jiyue had was his realm and advanced understanding. Now, this advantage was rapidly being wiped out. Jiyue's expression finally changed. Now, Jiyue only wanted to kill Zhong Zia as soon as possible. He did his best and pushed Jiyue's strength to its limits, leaving wounds on Zhong Zia's body. However, those wounds were not fatal, and the chances of them injuring Zhong Zia were getting lower and lower. Zhong Zia's pupils had already turned a strange red. The red that was almost blood red was evil and crazy. It made Jiyue panic. You shouldn't have come. Zhong Zia was caught by Jiyue, but at that moment, Jiyue did not feel the joy of succeeding. Instead, he felt that something was amiss. Crack! Zhong Zia's neck was snapped by Jiyue again, but his severed body turned into a puppet. Jiyue's pupils constricted. This time, he could not tell that it was Zhong Zia's avatar. Realizing that the situation was not good, he wanted to use space to teleport away, but he found that Zhong Zia was already behind him, his blood-stained lips almost touching his ear. I will cut off your head. Bang! Jiyue felt a huge force coming from behind him as his body flew forward involuntarily. Jiyue wanted to extend the spatial distance, but he suddenly realized that his body seemed to be locked. He couldn't extend the space any further. Furthermore, his body had retreated from his terror state. Jiyue felt that there was something on his back, but he couldn't see it. It was a strange, blood-colored incantation that was imprinted on his back. It emitted an evil aura. Jiyue didn't have the time to look at what was on his back because Zhong Zia had already strangely appeared behind him. He held primordial immortal sword with both hands and slashed at his neck at an unbelievable speed. As Jiyue had exited his terror state, everyone watching the battle could see this scene. Boom! A beam of light flew out from Jiyue's body. Although he still had a chance to fight to the death, the dimensional creature didn't want to risk his life. Just as Zhong Zia had said, his true strength wasn't limited to this. His true strength could easily crush Zhong Zia to death. He didn't want to risk his life against Zhong Zia. As the figure of light ascended, it looked back. This glance nearly made it vomit blood. The primordial immortal sword in Zhong Zia's hand was hanging above Jiyue's neck. The blade had already touched his skin, but it didn't slash down. This bastard, the figure of light, immediately understood. There was only one possibility for him to retract his sword under such circumstances. Zhong Zia hadn't planned on slashing down to begin with. Otherwise, with such strength and speed, it was impossible for him to retract his sword at the last moment. Everything he had done previously was just to scare him. Under such circumstances, Zhong Zia actually dared to do such a thing. If it was seen through that the strike was just a feint, the figure of light would have taken the opportunity to kill Zhong Zia. However, not only had Zhong Zia done it, but the figure of light had also been frightened. It hadn't seen through the feint of the strike. He's indeed a fool. Zhongzia glanced at the figure of light that flew into the void and muttered before returning the sword to its scabbard. The light figure shook violently in the void, then instantly shot into the void and disappeared. Haha, this person is really interesting. Xiao Luchuan laughed so hard that he almost couldn't straighten his back. This isn't interesting. He's risking his life. If that dimensional creature could tell that his strike was a feint, I'm afraid he would already be dead, Dugagu said solemnly. To dare slash out such a strike in such a situation, this person is either a lunatic or an idiot, Zhang Chunxiu said as he looked at Zhongzia with a strange expression. He doesn't look like a lunatic, Dugagu said. That's why he's an idiot, Xiao Luchuan said. Idiot? That's good, Zhang Chunxiu said thoughtfully. In the arena, Jiyue regained control of his body. He looked at Zhongzia with a complicated expression and didn't say a word. He only cupped his fists and bowed slightly before admitting defeat and leaving the arena. Yeah. At that moment, many of the humans watching the battle were shouting Ye's name. They even temporarily forgot the fact that Ye was only half human. Ye stood in the arena. Although his entire body was stained with blood, he left everyone in awe. None of the Guardians dared to challenge him again. There were very few Terragray Guardians to begin with, and there were even fewer who had Ye's realm and comprehension. Among the Guardians who were willing to fight, no one had the confidence to defeat him. Suddenly, he was ejected from the Cube's arena. At the same time, Ye's name vanished from the Cube's ranking. Everyone was first taken aback before they suddenly understood what had happened. Instantly, the entire Federation and overseas fell into an uproar. Chapter 1091. Holy *T, kicking him out of the rankings just because he can't beat him. Can he be any more shameless? Don't play if you can't afford it. Why the *CK the arena? Can't you just designate first place? How pitiful. *CK, your king of Earth. Yeah, is the real king of Earth. Instantly, the entire Federation and overseas were enraged, but what was the use? He was still kicked out of the rankings. It was impossible for him to return to it. Zhou Wen's expression was nasty. He wasn't thinking about victory or defeat. It didn't matter to Zhou Wen if Zhongzia could obtain first place or if he had suffered grievances. However, Zhongzia had signed a betting contract. If he didn't obtain first place, the betting contract would be considered a failure. His body would suffer a backlash from the Guardian, and he would completely lose himself. Now, Zhou Wen wished he could immediately find Zhongzia and see how he was, but he had no idea where Zhongzia was. Grim Demon, what happens if you lose after signing the betting contract? Zhou Wen called Grim Demon out and asked with a cold expression. Grim Demon replied, gloatingly, the betting contract has a strong binding force on both parties. Even a calamity-grade expert would find it difficult to violate the betting contract. I reckon that Punk's body should already belong to the guardian of the betting contract. Upon hearing Grim Demon's words, Zhou Wen knew that there was no hope. Even a calamity-grade expert couldn't escape the betting contract. Zhongzia was most likely doomed. No matter what, you can't let a human obtain first place, right? Zhou Wen looked coldly at the ranking. The anger in his heart was indescribable as he walked towards the cube. If Zhongzia were to lose, it would be because he was inferior. However, Zhou Wen couldn't accept being forcefully kicked out and robbed of his life. He had nowhere to vent his anger. What are you doing? Grim Demon hurriedly chased after Zhou Wen when he saw him walk towards the cube. Participating in the cube's ranking battle, Zhou Wen answered. Grim Demon hurriedly said, actually, you don't have to go. We are one. If I obtain first place, it's equivalent to you obtaining first place. Now that I'm ranked first, I can guarantee that I can definitely defend first place and take back the dimensional wheel. Zhou Wen naturally knew that Grim Demon's victory was equivalent to his victory, but Zhou Wen didn't want to win, nor would he let Grim Demon win. Although Grim Demon belonged to him, Grim Demon also represented a certain race in the dimension. If Grim Demon won, it also meant that the race had won. This wasn't what Zhou Wen wanted now. Stay here and wait for my challenge. You decide what to do. Zhou unsummoned his companion beasts, leaving only Grim Demon standing there before boarding the cube. As it had been kicked out, the first on the rankings was Grim Demon, who was originally second. After Zhou boarded the cube, he injected his essence energy into it. The cube immediately reacted. Among pure humans, Zhou was probably the only one who could activate the cube. This was because guardians and dimensional creatures had natural names, but humans didn't. When the cube did the test, the name was blank. Zhou needed to fill in himself. Human. Zhou only filled in one word. As there were no other guardians or companion beasts challenging Grim Demon, all the cubes in the world displayed his challenge and name after Zhou when issued his challenge. Human. All the humans were taken aback when they saw this name. This was because dimensional creatures and guardians had natural names. Even if humans and guardians fought together after contracting, the cube would only display the guardian's name and not the human's name. And this human clearly wasn't the guardian's name. He should be a human like ya, right? People guessed. Even if he's really a human like ya and is as powerful as ya, I'm afraid it's useless. He will ultimately be kicked out. Those bastards from the dimension won't let humans obtain first place. Even half a human won't do. It's good to defeat Grim Demon to vent my anger. How can it be that simple to defeat Grim Demon? That Grim Demon is definitely at the terror grade. Unless this person is as strong as ya, there might be a chance. Everyone discussed spiritedly. They basically believed that it was a monster that was half human and half guardian. In fact, most humans didn't approve of people like Wang Mingyuan and Ya. The reason they had previously supported Ya was partly because he was too outstanding, and secondly, they had no other choice. Pure humans couldn't even leave their names on the rankings. They didn't have a chance to support them. As people discussed, Grim Demon accepted the challenge. The scene on the cube screen changed to the scene of the cube's arena. Two bodies appeared on the cube's arena. One of them was naturally Grim Demon. However, most people wanted to know what the fellow who claimed to be human looked like. Although they knew that it was impossible for him to be pure human, most people still felt a sense of recognition for daring to use a human's name to fight. However, when they saw the figure, they were stunned. The figure was dressed in human clothes and looked like a human from head to toe. Apart from the white jade mask on his face, he looked human no matter how one looked at him. It looks like he's really a human. It's impossible for him to be pure human. He's definitely half human like ya. But I can't see any signs of mutation on him. Didn't you see him wearing a mask? The mutation must be on his face. Everyone discussed, but Zhou stood there motionless as he looked at Grim Demon with a complicated expression. The mask on his face was called the Moonlit Mask. It was transformed from a companion beast, the Moonlit Rabbit. The Moonlit Rabbit companion beast was transformed from the pearl he had obtained from the Moon Goddess. Although it had a mythical foundation, it was still at the mortal stage. Moonlit Rabbit, mortal, evolvable, strength, 11 speed, 11 constitution, 11 essence energy, 11 talent ability. Moonlight transformation companion form. Facial armor. The reason he used the Moonlit Mask was because of the Moonlight transformation skill. Although it was only a facial armor, the existence of this skill prevented others from seeing his true figure and appearance. Zhou didn't want to become famous. He only wanted to vent the anger in his heart. At the same time, he didn't want any guardian to become the king of Earth. When everyone saw Grim Demon finally move, they stopped discussing and focused their gazes on him. Everyone knew how terrifying Grim Demon was. Many people even believed that he wasn't weaker than Ya. He had only admitted defeat because of his relationship with Ya. They also wanted to know how powerful Grim Demon would be if he truly unleashed his combat strength. Grim Demon walked in front of Zhou step by step. Everyone imagined that Grim Demon was about to attack, but his next action petrified everyone. Chapter 1092. Grim Demon knew that it was time for him to choose a side, but he didn't feel too conflicted. He directly chose to stand on Zhou Wen's side. Guardians weren't pure dimensional creatures to begin with. They were just tools created by dimensional creatures. He didn't have any feelings for dimensional creatures to begin with. Of course, this wasn't the reason he chose Zhou Wen. It was mainly because demonic neonate was Zhou Wen's companion beast. Demonic neonate was definitely on Zhou Wen's side, so Grim Demon had no choice. He would stand wherever demonic neonate stood. It wasn't difficult to choose a side. The difficult part was how to stand. Grim Demon knew that Zhou Wen didn't trust him, and demonic neonate listened to Zhou Wen. Therefore, Grim Demon felt that this was a very good opportunity. If he did well and obtained Zhou Wen's trust, he might be able to escape the awkward position of being a reserve. Gritting his teeth, Grim Demon made up his mind and walked over to Zhou Wen. Everyone looked forward to the beginning of the battle as their gazes focused on Grim Demon. Now, they only hoped that Grim Demon and Zhou Wen wouldn't disappear again. Grim Demon didn't vanish. He slowly walked in front of Zhou Wen and, under everyone's incredulous gazes, knelt on one knee like a knight. He pressed his right hand to his heart and said to Zhou Wen, "In the name of Grim Demon, I'm willing to sign a master-slave contract with you. I'll be loyal to you forever." The entire world fell dead silent. People couldn't believe their eyes and ears. Guardian? That was a guardian. What a noble and powerful existence. Without exception, the humans who had guardians had put in a lot of effort to obtain the guardian's recognition before they had the chance to sign a contract with it. Many people even paid the price of their lives to contract a guardian. It could be said that although the guardian contract was an equal contract, humans were actually the weaker party in the contract. They were the ones chosen. As for the guardians, their strength was incomparable to Grim Demon's. They were much weaker. Such a powerful Grim Demon actually took the initiative to request to contract the person in front of him. Furthermore, he even requested to sign a master-slave contract. This was unheard of. Guardians can also sign master-slave contracts? Wait, Grim Demon wants to sign a contract with that person. In other words, that person definitely hasn't contracted a guardian. Can a human who has fused with a guardian contract a guardian? If not, then could this person be a pure human? That's impossible. Pure humans can't advance to the mythical stage at all. It's impossible for them to activate the cube and enter the ranking battle. Who is this person? He's only wearing a mask. Can anyone recognize his true appearance? Not just ordinary people, even the old powerhouses of the 6 great clans were shocked. They had never seen such a thing before. Old Xiao, can you tell who this person is? Xiao Luchuan asked. I can't tell. Some power has changed his body. His current body shouldn't be his main body, Zhang Chuanxiu answered. There was also a constant flow of information from overseas, wanting to investigate the true identity of the man on the stage. Zhou Wen looked at Grim Demon with an odd expression. He could roughly guess Grim Demon's thoughts. Seeing that Zhou Wen wasn't saying a word, Grim Demon had no choice but to maintain his knight's oath posture. He kept consoling himself inwardly. I'll put up with the act for Her Excellency Demonic Neonate. Zhou Wen waved his hand, gesturing for Grim Demon to leave quickly. He wasn't in the mood to act here. All he wanted to do now was kill the Guardians. However, he remembered Grim Demon's intentions. Grim Demon hurriedly stood up when he saw this. He admitted defeat and left the cube's arena. Holy sh*T. He actually doesn't want a guardian that came knocking on his door? That's Grim Demon, a top guardian. He rejected it just like that? Boss, you didn't give it to me. I want it. This world must be crazy. Such a powerful guardian took the initiative to request a master-slave contract, but he actually rejected it. Is that Grim Demon really stupid? Someone didn't give him any face, but he didn't attack. He even obediently admitted defeat. Isn't this too ridiculous? I think Grim Demon knows how powerful humans are, so he took the initiative to request a master-slave contract. Furthermore, he doesn't dare fall out with him. Comparisons are really infuriating. It wasn't just Earth. The dimensional creatures watching this battle in the dimensional world were also dumbfounded. Many dimensional creatures who had experienced the ancient war on Earth knew that Grim Demon was a guardian. He was also one of the top guardians back then. Grim Demon's actions were just too strange to them. They even suspected that Grim Demon was fake. Soon, the various dimensional races issued orders to their guardians on Earth. They got them to probe the weakness of human and figure out what kind of existence human was. Due to the restrictions of Earth's rules, no matter how powerful the dimensional races were, they would be punished by the rules if they descended personally. At most, they would maintain the standard of the Terror grade. They might even fall to the mythical stage. They couldn't personally investigate Zhou. All they could do was observe him through the cube. The information they could obtain was very limited. Before Zhou went on stage, he had already thought things through. Before he went on stage, he had already drawn the heaven-opening scripture of the highest elder on his wheel of destiny and constantly engraved it. Even if the heaven-opening scripture of the highest elder disappeared, the engraved heaven-opening scripture of the highest elder could be replenished. This allowed him to maintain the activated state of the heaven-opening scripture of the highest elder. To others, this would expend a large amount of mental strength and essence energy, but to Zhou, this expenditure was nothing. Now, he only wanted to know if the heaven-opening scripture of the highest elder, which could break through all kinds of dimensional zones, could withstand the cube's rules. If he couldn't withstand it, the dimensional creatures could kick him away like how they had kicked you away. Then there'd be no chance. As long as they couldn't kick him away, he definitely wouldn't let any guardian obtain first place. However, Zhou also knew that the dimensional creatures definitely wouldn't use the cube's rules to kick him away immediately. From the various actions of the dimensional creatures and the information he had obtained from Ice Maiden, there were many races in the dimension. They restrained each other and even often launched racial wars. The cube wasn't something that a single race could control alone. After all, the victor of the cube would allow a particular race to obtain control of Earth. It was impossible for the dimension to allow a single race to completely control the cube. It wasn't an easy task to obtain the consent of all those in power and use the rules to kick him out. Even if all the bigwigs could reach a consensus, it would definitely take some time. Otherwise, the fellows from the dimension wouldn't have used so many troublesome means to deal with you. Chapter 1093. The reason Zhou maintained the activated state of the heaven-opening scripture of the highest elder was to be safe. If those big shots had just kicked you and were still in a meeting, it would be too unfair if they decided to kick him as well. Thankfully, what Zhou was worried about didn't happen. No special power descended on him. Instead, the challenges of the Guardians kept appearing in front of him. Zhou took a look and realized that many Guardians who hadn't advanced to the Terror grade were challenging him. He couldn't help but have a thought as he chose to accept the challenge of one of the mythical Guardians. The Guardian's name was Flaming Battle God. Zhou really didn't know which family his contractor was from, but just from the name, he knew that it was definitely a Fire Elemental Guardian. Furthermore, its ranking wasn't high. It wasn't even in the top 10. The possibility of it being at the Terror grade was almost zero. Everyone couldn't help but be disappointed when they saw that he had chosen Flaming Battle God and not Cave Era, which had previously performed so well. After all, Flaming Battle God's strength was much weaker than Grim Demon's. Even Grim Demon had automatically admitted defeat, so Flaming Battle God was no match for him. However, there were people who didn't think so. Many human experts now knew that the contract between a Guardian and a human focused on potential, not absolute strength. Grim Demon might have chosen human because of his talent, not because of his strength. The human in the Flaming Battle God armor entered the arena. He was originally a little nervous, afraid that the strange person in front of him was really as powerful as Grim Demon. If that happened, he would be in danger. However, when he saw that the other party had summoned a companion beast and gotten it to charge at him, clearly planning on letting the companion beast fight him, he immediately felt a lot more at ease. His courage also increased. Why is it a companion beast? A companion beast is definitely no match for a Guardian. Don't tell me he wants to use a companion beast to win. From the looks of that companion beast, it seems to have some fire elemental abilities. Does anyone know what companion beast that is? Why do I feel like I've never seen it before? The companion beast that Zhou, when summoned, was the fiend-armored Tiger Soul General. The mythical fiend-armored Tiger Soul General could be said to be the nemesis of fire elemental abilities. It was perfect for dealing with Flaming Battle God. The reason Zhou did this was because he didn't want to scare the Guardians away, nor did he want the big shots to use the cube's rules to kick him out. If the heaven-opening scripture of the highest elder couldn't withstand the cube's rules, he could at least kill a few Guardians before he was kicked out. Playing with fire in front of me. Seeing the strange flames burning in the fiend-armored Tiger Soul General's body charge over, the human in the flaming battle god armor sneered. The flames on his body burst forth, condensing a huge flaming saber that slashed at the fiend-armored Tiger Soul General. Tiger Soul raised its spear to block. After the flaming saber collided, the spear, it transformed into a sea, and instantly, Tiger Soul General's winds flame. In the flames, the Tiger Soul General's armor turned red. It was like a piece of metal in a charcoal fire, as though it would melt into liquid metal at any moment. Demon Dragon, Master of Spirit in, at a Elder of the Sea is. God battle like God. Demon Yang what? Fighting when with ya, when used Elder God ya? Quickly. Used as with God. You and ye and God. When be. Hurry up and fight like ya. Unleash your strength and kill the Guardian. People clearly didn't want to see companion beasts fight. Although Zhou had previously shown off his companion beasts, it was only for show and not a real battle. To most people, it was still impossible to use a companion beast to defeat a Guardian. Under Zhou's control, the fiend-armored Tiger Soul General charged at Flaming Battle God without any regard for its own safety. However, its armor had already been burned red. It looked like it was in a terrible situation. Flaming Battle God slashed out another flaming saber, hoping to defeat the fiend-armored Tiger Soul General. The flaming saber struck the fiend-armored Tiger Soul General, causing sparks to fly everywhere as though molten metal had splattered out of his body. Furthermore, the fiend-armored Tiger Soul General was forced to retreat repeatedly. Its body was enveloped by more flames, and the Tiger Soul General's appearance could no longer be seen. All one could see was a figure wrapped in flames retreating in the sea of fire. He's actually not dead? Flaming Battle God frowned slightly. He planned on ending the battle quickly and finishing off the companion beast. After all, wasting too much time on a companion beast was a humiliation for him. He gathered his strength and slashed out continuously with his flaming saber. One flaming saber after another slashed at the fiend-armored Tiger Soul General in the sea of fire, forcing him to constantly retreat. More and more molten metal splattered from his body, but after retreating again and again, the Tiger Soul General, who looked like he was about to collapse, was still not killed. Flaming Battle God realized that something was amiss. He immediately made up his mind and used the power of the Wheel of Destiny while the Tiger Soul General was retreating. Terrifying flames turned from red to golden as they rose from Flaming Battle God's body, condensing into a golden flaming chariot. With roaring battle intent, it crushed toward the Tiger Soul General. Wherever the golden flaming chariot went, everything melted. Even the red flames that originated from Flaming Battle God were melted by the golden flames. Boom! The golden flaming chariot slammed into the Tiger Soul General's body. The flaming wheels constantly spun crazily as though they wanted to crush and melt everything. The Tiger Soul General's body was constantly pushed back by the golden flaming chariot. Soon, it was pushed out of the sea of fire. At that moment, people realized that the Tiger Soul General's body was burning with purplish-red flames. It looked extremely strange. Even the armor was burned by the purplish-red flames until it was crystalline like an amethyst. He wasn't injured at all. The various attacks from before had failed to cause him any damage. The Tiger Soul General raised a spear with both hands and stood in front of the golden flaming chariot. Not only did the flames of the golden flaming chariot not injure him, but they also made the flames in his body burn even more fiercely. Flaming Battle God could tell that there was a problem with the fiend-armored Tiger Soul General, but it was already too late. With a boom, the Tiger Soul General's spear slammed down, shattering the golden flaming chariot and turning it into golden flames that scattered. In the next moment, the strange-looking tiger beneath the fiend-armored Tiger Soul General let out a roar and charged at Flaming Battle God. Seeing that the situation wasn't looking good, Flaming Battle God summoned a dragon and a warhammer. They were both mythical companion beasts. He rode the dragon and warhammer towards the fiend-armored Tiger Soul General. Despite fighting 3 alone, the fiend-armored Tiger Soul General's ferocious might didn't decrease. The ferocious tiger beneath him leaped up and stepped on the dragon. Wherever the tiger's claws passed, it left behind several wounds that burned with purple flames on the dragon's back, causing it to fall with a tragic cry. The ferocious tiger used the momentum to pounce at Flaming Battle God. The spear in the Tiger Soul General's hand met the warhammer. The powerful impact forcefully sent the warhammer in Flaming Battle God's hand flying. He retreated repeatedly as blood seeped out his mouth. His expression changed drastically. Chapter 1094. The people who were clamoring to get humans to attack quickly quietened down. All of them stared blankly at the battle in the arena as their expressions gradually turned odd. With the help of the 2 mythical companion beasts, the dragon and the warhammer, and the power of a guardian, everyone originally thought that this would be a battle without any suspense. Now, there was indeed no suspense in this battle, but it was different from what they imagined. The one being suppressed was Flaming Battle God. Looking at the fiend-armored Tiger Soul General charging through the arena like a fiend celestial that had descended to the mortal world, a question mark surfaced in many people's minds. What companion beast is this? It's King Ferocious. Why haven't I heard of such a ferocious companion beast before? I vomited blood again. Flaming Battle God's armor is about to crack. It's even with the help of 2 mythical companion beasts. It was beaten to such a state in a head-on clash. This companion beast is extremely powerful. This plot isn't right. Didn't they say that guardians would definitely beat up companion beasts? Why is it being beaten up? Flaming Battle God should still have other ultimate moves, right? What ultimate move? The golden flaming chariot from before was his ultimate move. The spear in the Tiger Soul General's hand danced wildly as it smashed into Flaming Battle God's chest, shattering his chest armor. Flaming Battle God was sent flying like a sandbag. Accompanied by shattered armor, Flaming Battle God tumbled far away in the arena before coming down. The Tiger Soul General didn't stop. Demonic flames spewed out from its body as it arrived in front of Flaming Battle God like a demon. Flaming Battle God had no chance of winning the battle with the Tiger Soul General. In the early stages, the Tiger Soul General had absorbed so many flames. Furthermore, it would only become stronger as the battle progressed. It was too easy to beat Flaming Battle God. Seeing that the situation wasn't looking good, Flaming Battle God wanted to admit defeat and leave the arena. Unfortunately, he was still a step too late. Zhou, when it already arrived, not far behind him at some point in time. He held something that looked like a grenade in his hand and threw it at Flaming Battle God before quickly retreating. Boom, boom, boom. The energy produced by the explosion of the grenade transformed from the ancient splitting tadpole directly blasted the Flaming Battle God armor, which was already cracked and chipped into pieces. Furthermore, the explosions were continuous. After the big ancient splitting tadpole exploded, it split into smaller grenades and continued to explode. The continuous explosions almost instantly blew up the flaming war god into pieces. He couldn't be more dead. He died just like that. There were still people who couldn't believe that a guardian had been killed just like that. So guardians aren't as strong as I imagined. With powerful companion beasts, I can still kill them. That requires a companion beast to be strong enough. That person's companion beast is too powerful. The grenade companion beast that killed Flaming Battle God looks like the ancient splitting tadpole from the companion beast show. Now that you mention it, it seems to be true. Could this person be the owner of those companion beasts? Damn, it's really possible. Soon, the news of his disappearance spread. The various media outlets began reporting the news. After all, people still had a deep impression of the companion beast show. However, this battle didn't stop the other guardians from challenging him. Although there were fewer guardians challenging him, there were still quite a number of them. Many of them were at the mythical stage. From their point of view, although Zhou Wen's companion beast was powerful, it wasn't insurmountable. Zhou Wen had mythical companion beasts, and so did they. As long as they used them properly, it wouldn't be difficult for them to defeat the fiend-armored Tiger Soul General. Furthermore, many people could tell the problem with the fiend-armored Tiger Soul General. They knew that the fiend-armored Tiger Soul General could absorb fire elemental powers and restrain Flaming Battle God. That was why Flaming Battle God had lost so miserably. Zhou Wen glanced at the challenge list and realized that there was a darkness emissary who had been scared away by Grim Demon. He was also the guardian that Zhou Ming had contracted. This fellow actually dares to challenge me? Is he crazy? Zhou Wen had some understanding of Zhou Ming. He didn't deliberately try to understand Zhou Ming. However, as a backdrop for Grim Demon's name shaking the world, many media outlets had reported on Zhou Ming. Grim Demon liked to read those reports and deliberately read them out for them. This was why Zhou Wen understood a little. For such a selfish fellow who was afraid of death to dare take the risk to challenge him, Zhou Wen felt that there was only one possibility. Something had given him such courage. What could it be? Could it be that a dimensional terror creature will descend on him like Jiyue? Zhou Wen thought about it and found it impossible. No matter how spineless a calamity-gray dimensional creature was, it wouldn't choose such a low-level human body to descend, right? If it wanted to choose, it would choose something like Cave Era or Jiyue. Zhou Wen thought for a moment and chose Darkness Emissary as his next opponent. Soon, Zhou Ming, who was wearing the Darkness Emissary armor, appeared in the arena. The moment he appeared, Zhou Ming began condensing the Door of Darkness. Unexpectedly, Zhou Ming condensed the Door of Darkness very quickly. Zhou Wen immediately saw the problem. Zhou Ming held a black crystal in his hand. Most of the power that condensed the Door of Darkness came from the black crystal. Zhou Wen wasn't a madman like you, nor was he interested in knowing what the black crystal was or how the Door of Darkness was different from before. Therefore, he directly drew Night Immaculate. The smoke-like Night Immaculate tore through the air and stabbed at Zhou Ming, hoping to kill him and Darkness Emissary before Zhou Ming condensed the Door of Darkness. Although Night Immaculate wasn't absolutely invincible, Zhou Ming was condensing the Door of Darkness and couldn't move at all. Once he moved, the condensation of the Door of Darkness would be interrupted, and all his previous efforts would be wasted. Zhou Ming watched Night Immaculate fly over like a rainbow and had no intention of dodging. The moment Night Immaculate stabbed Darkness Emissary's armor, a golden light bloomed from his chest. It was a golden incantation pattern. The incantation pattern transformed into a golden barrier that protected Zhou Ming within. Night Immaculate crisscrossed and slashed at the golden barrier again and again, but it failed to slice through it. Zhou Wen looked at the golden barrier and sensed the power on it. Now, no matter how stupid he was, he understood that be it the golden runes or the black crystal, they were definitely the work of the dimension. Those with some insight could guess what had happened. They were very worried for Human, afraid that Yu's encounter would repeat itself. Zhou Wen stared at the Door of Darkness. He knew that the dimensional creatures weren't that simple. The truly terrifying thing was definitely inside the Door of Darkness. Could it be that a dimensional creature wants to use the Door of Darkness to descend personally? Zhou Wen thought to himself. The Door of Darkness condensed extremely quickly. In a moment, it took shape. With a boom, the Door of Darkness opened. A roar that seemed to come from the abyss sounded from the depths of the Door of Darkness. Is there really a dimensional creature descending personally? Zhou Wen stared intently at the Door of Darkness. Chapter 1095. Boom, boom. Terrifying footsteps sounded from inside the door of darkness. Every step seemed to shake the void. Seeing a black figure walk out of the door, Zhou retracted his knight immaculate sword and didn't continue attacking Zhou Ming because it was too late. Through the cube, people gradually saw the creature that came out of the door. It was a monster that seemed to be shrouded in darkness. Its faintly discernible figure in the darkness was like a huge minotaur. It had huge bull horns, an arrow-shaped tail, and a pair of inverted legs. It walked out of the door of darkness step by step and descended onto the arena. The entire arena seemed to be enveloped by the terrifying aura of darkness. Unlike Knight Thearka's Evernight power, the aura of darkness didn't block out light. One could still see the monster's indistinct figure, but this seemingly invisible appearance made people feel even more terrified. In an ancient temple on the plateau, an old man played with a demon fall pestle as he looked at the cube screen beside him. When he saw the dark minotaur appear, he couldn't help but frown slightly. Using Darkness Emissary's Door of Darkness to summon a top Terror-grade creature, Darkness Domain Devil, to the arena, bypassing the suppression of Earth's rules, allowing Darkness Domain Devil to maintain its complete strength and descend with its true body. Those fellows from the dimension really think of anything to prevent humans from obtaining first place. However, can Darkness Domain Devil really let them get what they want? Jing Daoxian looked at Zhou Wan, who was on the other side of the arena. His eyes shimmered with a strange glint as he fiddled with the demon fall pestle and muttered to himself, "Let me see how far you have reached. How shameless. Such a creature isn't something a fellow like Zhou Ming can summon. It must be those fellows from the dimension," Li Xian said angrily. Wang Lu hugged Ye and said, "The cube is the home ground of dimensional creatures. If we want to obtain victory there, we have to be prepared to fight against adversity." Feng Shuyan also said, "What I'm most worried about now isn't this terror creature. I'm just afraid that Coach will be like ya and be kicked out by them using the cube's rules. He won't even have a chance to fight. Those shameless fellows will definitely do such a thing." Li Xian agreed with Feng Shuyan. Others might not recognize Zhou Wan, but they knew him too well. They had already recognized him from his companion beasts, so they were somewhat worried. "Don't worry, Zhou Wan won't be eliminated that easily," Wei Gu said with narrowed eyes. He came to the Wang family to pass on the message that Zhou Wan had given Li Xian and company. He happened to see Zhou Wan enter the arena, so he stayed to watch the battle. That fellow, old Zhou, does have many strange abilities, but this is his home ground after all. The rules were set by him. It's not easy. Li Xian felt a headache coming on just thinking about it. It was clearly a battle that determined the King of Earth, but the rules weren't customized by the creatures on Earth. Darkness Domain Devil, kill him. Zhou Ming pointed at Zhou Wan excitedly. Although he hadn't summoned Darkness Domain Devil with his own strength, and a dimensional creature had secretly helped him, this was the closest chance he had to getting to the King of Earth. With the power of Darkness Domain Devil, as long as he defeated this strange person in front of him, he would very likely obtain the dimensional wheel and become the King of Earth. Darkness Domain Devil ignored him as it stared at Zhou Wan. In the darkness, its blood-red eyes were like a pair of huge red lanterns. Although Darkness Domain Devil was summoned by Zhou Ming, it wasn't a summoned beast. Instead, it was a very famous creature in the Darkness Domain. It was one of the strongest Terror-grade creatures in the dimension. If not for certain reasons, Darkness Domain Devil would have long advanced to the Calamity grade. The reason why the dimensional bigwigs who had secretly planned this operation had gotten Darkness Domain Devil to use the Door of Darkness's true body to descend was that they hoped to settle things once and for all without causing any more trouble. Previously, they had paid a huge price to forcefully kick you out before the various bigwigs agreed to use the cube's nomological powers. If they did it again, ignoring the fact that the bigwigs who knew that their race had no hope of obtaining first place would demand an exorbitant price, it wouldn't be easy to invite those bigwigs over. Weak creatures like humans always cause a lot of trouble. Those fellows in the past were already troublesome enough. I never expected these fellows to be even more troublesome now. The mysterious shadow felt a headache coming on. It was clearly a weak creature that couldn't even advance to the mythical stage, but it could take advantage of every opportunity and use all means to do things that gave them a headache. Before you die, do you have any other wishes? If it's not too difficult, I can try my best to satisfy you. Darkness Domain Devil said to Zhou. It naturally didn't have good intentions. This was also one of its abilities. If its opponents wavered, it would make its strength stronger. Although its opponent was only an earth creature, Darkness Domain Devil wasn't careless at all. It treated Zhou as an opponent of the same level. It only wanted to use the safest method to kill its opponent in exchange for the benefits promised by the dimensional bigwigs. In a battle of the same level, strength was undoubtedly the most important factor, but apart from that, the strength of a creature's willpower was also crucial to the battle. I really do have a wish. It's not too difficult. I hope you can satisfy me, Zhou said after some serious thought. Darkness Domain Devil was slightly delighted. It imagined that Zhou had wavered, so it asked, "Tell me, what's your wish?" Zhou sized up Darkness Domain Devil and said in all seriousness, "Can you let me see your true body?" Darkness Domain Devil was slightly taken aback. It never expected Zhou to make such a request. It immediately knew that Zhou hadn't wavered. Perhaps he was just stalling for time. Darkness Domain Devil didn't waste any more time. The darkness aura on its body surged like a tidal wave in the arena. Soon, it enveloped the entire cube, preventing outsiders from seeing anything. However, the darkness aura didn't harm anyone. Instead, the sanguine color in Darkness Domain Devil's eyes deepened. However, no one noticed it under the envelopment of the darkness domain. Come, let me bring your soul into the dark abyss and enjoy the joy of depravity. Darkness Domain Devil approached Zhou with the tide of the darkness aura. At the same time, the sanguine glow in its eyes intensified as though it had some soul-stealing power. Zhou's wheel of destiny kept spinning as he saw Darkness Domain Devil's every move. When he saw those eyes, he immediately felt attracted as though his soul was about to be sucked in. Thankfully, his willpower and mental strength were stronger than ordinary people's. He temporarily stabilized his mind, but he pretended to be attracted by it as though he had lost his mind. He walked towards Darkness Domain Devil step by step. Chapter 1096. In the darkness, Zhou walked towards Darkness Domain Devil step by step. Soon, he arrived in front of it. "Come, follow me to the abyss of fallen happiness." Darkness Domain Devil lowered its head and extended its palm as though it wanted to lift Zhou up. At the same time, its face was getting closer and closer to Zhou. Just as its palm was about to touch Zhou's figure suddenly vanished. When he appeared again, he was already in front of Darkness Domain Devil's eye. He held an ice crystal-like dragon tooth in his hand and stabbed it at its eye. The tip of the dragon tooth was about to touch Darkness Domain Devil's eyeball when a palm suddenly reached out from the darkness and grabbed the dragon tooth. "You're still very inexperienced to play tricks in front of me, Darkness Domain Devil." Darkness Domain Devil laughed sinisterly as it grabbed the dragon tooth with one hand and Zhou's body with the other. At the same time, it said, "It's no wonder you dare to be so arrogant. You actually have a terror item. This isn't something that any terror creature can condense." Before Darkness Domain Devil could finish its sentence, blood bloomed in its eyes. Demonic Neonate held the demonic sword and stabbed it into its eye. Darkness Domain Devil's reaction was extremely fast. It reached out to crush Zhou, but when its other eye clearly saw Demonic Neonate stabbing it, its hand froze. Its eyes were filled with disbelief. Its palm unconsciously loosened as Zhou fell from its hand and turned into a substitute talisman in midair. As for Zhou's true body, it appeared to the other side. Demonic Neonate immediately retreated after succeeding with her strike and landed in Zhou's arms. "No, impossible. Darkness Domain Devil stared at demonic neonate as its injured eye rapidly healed. However, it had no intention of attacking Zhou. All it did was stare intently at demonic neonate with a look of horror, as though it had seen a ghost. Zhou could tell that something was amiss and had an ominous feeling. He immediately unsummoned demonic neonate. Darkness Domain Devil clearly knew demonic neonate, or rather, it had seen an existence similar to demonic neonate. In the past, Zhou already felt that something was amiss when Grim Demon knew demonic neonate. However, Grim Demon was a guardian born on Earth after all. However, Darkness Domain Devil was different. It was a creature from a dimension. It actually recognized demonic neonate and looked so shocked. This was a huge problem. If demonic neonate was really related to the dimension, who knew what would happen if the big shots of the dimension saw him using demonic neonate in the arena? From Ya's previous encounter, it could be seen that the fellows from the dimension were different from humans. They didn't care about face at all and were unscrupulous in order to achieve their goals. This was extremely dangerous. Now, Zhou was somewhat glad that he had summoned demonic neonate in the darkness. Otherwise, demonic neonate would have been completely exposed. Zhou already had the intention to kill. He was about to summon Banana Fairy and kill Darkness Domain Devil with all his might. However, before Zhou could attack, he saw the Darkness Domain Devil suddenly retract its Darkness Domain. Even the darkness aura on its body completely converged, revealing its true body. The spectators stared at the black screen and couldn't see anything. However, it was obvious that the creature Zhou Ming summoned was definitely a terror-grade existence. Many people were worried for Zhou. They hoped to know the outcome as soon as possible, but they were also worried that they would see the scene of Zhou's tragic death when the darkness domain disappeared. Even Zhou Ming himself couldn't see anything in the darkness domain. Suddenly, the darkness in the arena vanished. Not only did the darkness domain vanish, but even the black gas lingering around Darkness Domain Devil vanished. Only then did everyone see that Darkness Domain Devil's true body wasn't as huge as they imagined. It was only about 10 meters tall. Compared to humans, it was already very majestic. It had a bull's head and hooves, but its body and hands were human. Furthermore, it wore a black robe, making it look extremely strange. Seeing that Darkness Domain Devil was unharmed, everyone was alarmed. They hurriedly searched the other corners of the arena, worried that Zhou had been killed. When they saw Zhou standing there unscathed, they couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. "What are you standing there for? Hurry up and kill him." Zhou Ming was immediately disappointed when he saw that Zhou wasn't dead. He immediately urged Darkness Domain Devil to quickly kill Zhou. This was because the dimensional creatures he had come into contact with had told him that Darkness Domain Devil was invincible among terror-grade existences. As long as he summoned Darkness Domain Devil over, he would definitely be invincible. In the next second, Darkness Domain Devil finally moved, but its target wasn't Zhou. It turned around and looked at Zhou Ming, who was wearing the Darkness Emissary armor. Its eyes flickered with a sanguine glow like the eyes of a devil. In an instant, Zhou Ming and the Darkness Emissary armor on his body exploded. Blood spewed everywhere, and instantly there was nothing left of him. This turn of events stunned everyone. They looked at the arena in a daze, unsure of what had happened. It wasn't just humans. Even many creatures from the dimension were stunned. The corners of the eyes of the big shot who had arranged for Darkness Domain Devil to descend on the arena twitched as he had a strong, ominous feeling. Zhou was also slightly taken aback, but he quickly thought of something. Could it be that this fellow is the same as Grim Demon? He's related to demonic neonate or the demonic neonate lineage. Zhou was momentarily hesitant. Should he continue summoning Banana Fairy to silence him? Darkness Domain Devil was very powerful, so it didn't seem easy to silence him. Furthermore, without the cover of the Darkness Domain, if he wanted to kill it without using demonic neonate, he would probably have to expose most of his abilities. After all, this was an arena where one could admit defeat. Zhou wasn't confident that he could kill Darkness Domain Devil before it admitted defeat. Just as Zhou was hesitating and everyone was puzzled, they saw Darkness Domain Devil suddenly take a step forward and kneel down on one knee. Just like Grim Demon from before, it placed its right hand on its chest and lowered its head. What's going on? What happened? Wasn't this thing summoned by Zhou Ming? Isn't it a terrifying creature from the dimension? It seems likely. Instantly, the Federation seemed to explode. It made sense if Grim Demon and Human were related to each other, but Darkness Domain Devil was a dimensional creature summoned by Zhou Ming. Why did it kneel after the screen turned black and lit up? Only Zhou knew that Darkness Domain Devil was kneeling to demonic neonate, not him. Little Yin Yin, pinch me. See if I'm still asleep? Li Xian said to Feng Qiuyin with a strange expression. Chapter 1097. Li Xian let out a tragic cry as he held the swollen half of his face. His fingers trembled as he pointed at Feng Qiuyin and stomped his feet. Why did you use so much strength? If I don't use more strength, how can I be sure that I'm not dreaming? Feng Qiuyin muttered to himself. Seeing how much pain you're in, I should be able to confirm that you're not dreaming. Then, there's no need for you to use so much strength, right? Are you trying to pinch me to death? If it weren't for my excellent bones, my face would have been flattened by you, Li Xian said relentlessly. With such great strength, others will die, but you won't, Feng Qiuyin said calmly. Li Xian opened his mouth and realized that he was powerless to retort. He swallowed his words. However, Li Xian was certain that this wasn't a dream. Darkness Domain Devil was still half kneeling there and lowering its head at Zhou. Due to the deaths of Zhou Ming and Darkness Emissary, the Door of Darkness also collapsed at the same time. Darkness Domain Devil lost the protection of this layer of relationship and was immediately repelled by Earth's laws. The darkness aura on its body rapidly dissipated. As Darkness Domain Devil resisted the terrifying nomological powers, it respectfully bowed 3 times in Zhou's direction. Without a word, it turned around and admitted defeat. It left the arena and returned to the dimension. Although Darkness Domain Devil didn't say a word, anyone could tell that he simply treated Zhou as a god. Previously, Grim Demon had only half knelt. Now, a powerful dimensional creature, Darkness Domain Devil, had bowed so respectfully. It was truly unbelievable. What's going on? Could this person be a powerful creature from the dimension in disguise? He can't be human, right? I don't think so. People began to suspect if Human was human. However, only humans could use companion beasts. This also meant that Human was human, or at the very least, half human. However, how could a human have such glory? He actually made Darkness Domain Devil bow to him. It was a terrifying existence that could instantly kill a guardian with a glance. Yet, it was like a servant in front of Zhou, treating him like a god. This was unbelievable. He was really human. As a result, many guardians who originally wanted a challenge were hesitant at this time. Darkness Domain Devil was clearly at the terror grade. Furthermore, it was created by the dimension. Its strength was extremely terrifying. Such an existence was so subservient in front of this fellow who claimed to be human. They were really afraid. Not to mention the human contractors, even the guardians themselves were afraid. Even though the dimensional bigwigs behind them repeatedly urged them, none of the guardians dared to enter the arena again. Time ticked by. If no one challenged him within an hour, Human would be crowned #1 on the leaderboard. After a few minutes of silence, someone finally issued a challenge. The challenger was Cave Era. Cave Era was a Terrorgrade guardian with the power of time. After entering the arena, she immediately transformed into her terror form and vanished from everyone's eyes. Others couldn't see it, but Zhou saw it very clearly. The terror transformation couldn't escape his eyes, but after the Cave Era terror transformation, his body obtained the augmentation of the power of time. Under the acceleration of time, his movement technique was unbelievably fast. Without any hesitation, Zhou summoned Banana Fairy. The fairy-like Banana Fairy appeared in front of Zhou when on Banana Fairy. Her elegant and beautiful appearance immediately attracted everyone's attention. Banana Fairy pouted her red lips and blew out a breath. A cold wind instantly rose in the arena and blew towards the terraform Cave Era. Cave Era summoned a triangular spike formed from a companion beast and charged at the cool breeze with a cold glint. She wanted to charge over. The cold beam pierced through the cold wind, but it only moved half a foot forward. As for Cave Era's body, it was sent flying by the cold wind. She left her terror form in midair and instantly flew an unknown distance away. She disappeared from the screen and was blown to an unknown location. Is that a companion beast? Heavens, that companion beast is too terrifying. It blew away a Terrorgrade, Cave Era in one breath. It's no wonder Grim Demon and Darkness Domain Devil fear human like tigers. Such a powerful companion beast is practically invincible. Isn't this too fake? A Terrorgrade Cave Era was blown away to the point of disappearing. What's the use of being strong? Looks are justice. Just by looking at how beautiful that companion beast is, I know that it's definitely invincible. If she were to act coquettishly towards me, I would definitely die of joy. A beautiful humanoid companion beast that's so terrifyingly strong. How much pain did that bro suffer in his previous life to exchange for such a companion beast in this life? Everyone was alarmed by Banana Fairy's strength and beauty. They attributed the reverence shown by Grim Demon and Darkness Domain Devil to her existence. They couldn't be blamed for having such thoughts. The combat prowess displayed by Banana Fairy was just too shocking. A tiny gust of wind blew away a Terrorgrade expert. She looked just too powerful. However, they didn't know that Banana Fairy only had a few moves. Apart from blowing wind, she didn't know anything else. Zhou watched as Cave Era was blown away by the Grandine wind. Her body was about to freeze into ice in midair. He felt that she was doomed. However, in the next second, a figure flashed. Cave Era strangely returned to the arena and appeared where she had been standing as though she had never moved. Zhou sized up Cave Era in surprise and asked, "Time reversal?" "I don't have the powerful strength to reverse time. Let alone reverse time, I can't even stop time. Otherwise, you would have long died." Cave Era replied coldly. Cave Era replied coldly. "It's just a time mark. It marks a point in time so that my body can return to that point in time. The longest the mark can be effective is 3 seconds. You didn't use this move when you fought, right?" Zhou asked. "It's an ability that can only be used once. I will still lose if I use it." "There's no need to use it," Cave Era said. "In that case, you think you can beat but can beat me?" Zhou asked. "At least there's a chance," Cave Era said as she transformed into her terror form again and charged at Zhou. Banana Fairy blew out the Grand Een Wind again, but the speed of the Grand Een Wind couldn't catch up to Cave Era, who had accelerated time. Cave Era circled around the Grand Een Wind and continued charging at Zhou. Banana Fairy was a wind elemental super mythical pet. In terms of speed, she wasn't slower than Cave Era. With Cave Era accelerating time, Banana Fairy still caught up to her. With a grab, the banana leaf beneath her transformed into a fan that appeared in her hand. She fanned it at Cave Era as her body vanished after entering her terror form. It was as though she had transformed into an invisible wind. This was a competition of speed. Banana Fairy and Cave Era were unbelievably fast, but ordinary people couldn't see their figures. All they could see was the constant flow of wind in the arena. After Banana Fairy was lured away, Cave Era suddenly summoned 4 mythical companion beasts and charged at Zhou. Chapter 1098. Ordinary people couldn't see Banana Fairy and Cave Era, but the 4 mythical companion beasts could see them clearly. Golden 3-headed dragon, World Wolf, Dark Troll, and Pharaoh. Many people immediately recognized the mythical companion beasts. It wasn't that they were knowledgeable, but that the 4 companion beasts were too famous. The golden three-headed dragon was known as the strongest strength-type companion beast in the North District, while the world wolf was known as the fastest companion beast in the North District. Dark Troll was a famous mythical companion beast in the West District. Its body was extremely powerful, and it also had the ability to use dark magic. It was an excellent grade companion beast that cultivated both magic and martial arts. It was said that no one in the Darkness Abyss could defeat or kill it. They never expected Cave Era to have a Dark Troll companion beast. There was no need to mention Pharaoh. He was a divine companion beast with mythical magic powers. The four famous mythical companion beasts had appeared from Cave Era at the same time. It made people break out in a cold sweat for Joan. This was because most people believed that Banana Fairy was humans' greatest reliance. Now that Banana Fairy had been lured away by Cave Era, it was unknown if human could deal with the four powerful mythical companion beasts. Do you want to compete with companion beasts? Joan watched as the four companion beasts rushed over without any intention of retreating. He summoned most of the companion beasts that had previously appeared on the rankings. 6 demon blood true dragons appeared in the air and lined up in front of Joan. The last time he went to the underground sea, he had obtained another one. Now, he was only 3 short of 9 demon blood true dragons. Furthermore, the demon blood true dragons were very strange. It didn't matter if they didn't drop. The companion eggs that dropped were definitely demon blood true dragons of different attributes. Joan had never had a demon blood true dragon of the same attribute drop. Joan guessed that it might be because the demon blood true dragon's companion beast had a unique characteristic. Perhaps after he dropped it, no one else could drop it in the future. Now, Joan only hoped that he could drop the 9 companion eggs before others went to the underground sea to kill the demon blood true dragon. He wanted to see how strong the 9 demon blood true dragons were. Wow! 6 demon blood true dragons, 3 golden battle god halberds, ancient splitting tadpole, devil clown, knight immaculate sword, and the fire elemental knight that fought previously. The invisibility cloak should be around as well. These companion beasts really belong to the same person. What kind of luck is this? 6 demon blood true dragons, 3 golden battle god halberds, holy sh asterisk t, coupled with that beautiful fairy-like companion beast. How many mythical companion beasts does this fellow have? Does this guy have an affair with the goddess of luck? Why'd he get all the good pets? Instantly, everyone was shocked. The 4 mythical companion beasts of Cave Era's battle formation was already very shocking, but now, the companion beast that Zhou, when summoned, couldn't be called a battle formation. They were simply a sea of pets. The originally aggressive golden 3-headed dragon was instantly surrounded by 6 demon blood true dragons. The pharaoh was pursued by 3 golden battle god halberds. Knight immaculate sword transformed into a shocking sword beam that circled the world wolf. Sword wounds appeared on the world wolf's body as blood dyed its fur red. Everyone thought that it was an injury from Knight immaculate sword beam, but in fact, it was an invisible combination of light concealment and Knight immaculate sword. It was just that others couldn't see light concealment sword. The fiend armored tiger soul general, the devil clown, and the ancient splitting tadpole fought the dark troll. In just moments, the dark troll's skin and flesh were lacerated. What dual cultivation? After being hit by the devil clown's magic ball, he immediately became at a loss. He couldn't hit anywhere and could only be bullied by the fiend-armored tiger soul general. He couldn't dodge the ancient splitting tadpole's explosion. As long as the ancient splitting tadpole didn't explode 9 times in a row, it could slowly recover. There was no need to worry. The spectators had a good time watching. They couldn't see the previous Terrorgrade battle at all. All sorts of imaginations and guesses made them depressed. Although the mythical companion beast battle wasn't as strong as the Terrorgrade, it was very enjoyable to watch. The only bad thing was that Cave Era's companion beasts were being beaten up. They could only take the beating. Occasionally, they could counterattack, but they couldn't cause too much of a stir. If I had so many powerful companion beasts, I would dare compete with those guardians. Pooey. All I need is that beautiful fairy companion beast. That's equivalent to having the entire world. What's there to fight for? Luoyang's and family. Overseer, young master one's companion beast army is really terrifying. With so many mythical companion beasts, he probably has the ability to sweep through the Federation, and Sheng said as he watched the livestream. Companion beasts are ultimately external forces, and Tianzua said. Companion beasts are external forces. Guardians are external forces. Guns and cannons are also external forces. Humans are experts who are good at using external forces. Young Master one has already reached the pinnacle when it comes to companion beasts. I'm afraid no one on Earth can compare to him in companion beasts, and Sheng said. And Tianzua frowned and said, if you have the time to think of so many words to praise others, why don't you think about how to resolve the problem with the accelerator? Yes, Overseer. I'll think about it now. And Sheng realized that he had gotten carried away. He knew that something was amiss. After saluting, he turned around and wanted to escape. Come back, and Tianzua said coldly. Overseer, I really know my mistake. And Sheng turned his head with a bitter expression. And Tianzua snorted coldly. It's fine if you blow your own trumpet here, but if that punk thinks that he's invincible with those companion beasts, I'm afraid he won't even know how he died. However, it's good that he's dead. Death can give people peace. Overseer, what do you mean? What means does the dimension have that can restrain young master one's companion beasts? And Sheng asked carefully. There's no need for the dimension to take action. According to what I know, there's a guardian who has a skill similar to a seal. However, it doesn't seal a person's body, but a companion beast. Under the influence of his power, no one can even summon a companion beast. If that punk is as arrogant as you, he will definitely die. And Tianzua drank a cup of water and added, it's good that such a fellow is dead. It saves him from causing trouble everywhere. The Federation is already chaotic enough. It's good to have one less scourge. Overseer, I'll think of a way to inform young Master One after this battle ends. And Sheng said, if you want to inform him, that's your business. Why are you asking me? I can't wait for that troublemaker to be taught a lesson. And Tianzua said expressionlessly, yes, I'm the one who wants to inform young Master One. It has nothing to do with you, Overseer. As Sheng spoke, his eyes glanced at Tianzua. But I don't know where young Master One is now. How can I contact him? And Tianzua turned around and drank his tea as he said, don't look at me. Don't have any ideas about my voice transmission bell. Don't think that I'll lend it to you. Chapter 1099. Instead of saying that Cave Era had lured Banana Fairy away, it was more accurate to say that Banana Fairy had held Cave Era back. Cave Era could only constantly flee, not daring to take on Banana Fairy's supreme Yin Wind. Seeing that her companion beast was about to be surrounded to death, and that she was no match for Banana Fairy, Cave Era could only admit defeat and leave the cube. That's more satisfying. It's great to watch. So companion beasts can be so powerful. A pure companion beast can defeat a guardian. Guardians aren't that impressive. That beautiful fairy companion beast is simply my dream lover. When can I have such a companion beast? As no one challenged him, Zhou temporarily left the cube. Suddenly, Zhou's phone rang. This left him somewhat puzzled because there was no signal here. He couldn't contact Li Xian and company. He took out his phone and saw that it was in Sheng. Sheng, how did you get through? Zhou looked at his phone and realized that there was still no signal, but the call was very normal. It's all thanks to... Before Sheng could finish his sentence, and Tianzua, who was sitting in an office chair, looked up and glared at him. He immediately changed his words and said, it's just a special companion beast. Let's not talk about this. Young Master One, you have to be careful of a guardian named Blood Shaman. He has the ability to seal companion beasts. No one can use companion beasts in front of him. Do. And Sheng was just about to say the word overseer when Tianzua reached out to take back the bell in Sheng's hand. And Sheng could only shake his head helplessly. Hello. Sheng. Hello. Zhou suddenly couldn't hear anything. He looked at his phone screen and realized that the line had been disconnected. He couldn't get through again. There was no signal at all. What companion beast is that? It can actually forcefully connect to a signal. I have to think of a way to get one later. Although Zhou rarely made phone calls, it was annoying to not have a signal when he needed it. Blood Shaman? I wonder if the heaven-opening scripture of the highest elder can withstand the power of the seal. Is the seal considered a nomological power? Zhou thought for a moment and felt that it wasn't safe to rely on the heaven-opening scripture of the highest elder. If it didn't work, he would still have to rely on himself. As time ticked by, Zhou had no doubts about it. The big shots of the dimension definitely wouldn't watch him take first place. As long as there was such a guardian, there was a 99% chance that they would come to deal with him. There was also a 1% chance that they had already shaman taken down Zhou. Time ticked by. After more than half an hour, there was still no guardian challenging Zhou. As for people, they were still excitedly discussing the various companion beasts Zhou used. The various media outlets were analyzing Zhou's various companion beasts, especially Banana Fairy. Almost all the media outlets used her as their front-page headlines. Li Binyi was the fastest. Back when he was flaunting his pets, he had already made many companion beast figurines. However, they weren't too popular back then, but now they were completely popular. Shaman to say that, to say that, that to say Li of that, that Li of, to say that he, to say that, that to shaman back to him, that back to back had was not to him. In the past, they had no choice. They felt that guardians were too powerful and could only support them. However, now that humans' many companion beasts had appeared, it allowed people to see how powerful companion beasts were. It also changed people's views and brought companion beasts back into the sights of humans. Ordinary people couldn't come into contact with guardians, but companion beasts had a high chance of obtaining them. They naturally wanted to believe that companion beasts were the strongest. At that moment, the dimension wasn't calm either. How long had it been since Earth's essence energy recovered? Yet, Terra-grade companion beasts had already appeared. This was a very terrifying matter for the dimension. If this continued, calamity-grade companion beasts might soon appear on Earth. That was a situation that the dimension didn't wish to see. In the glorious palace, a warrior in gorgeous armor half knelt in front of the palace and said with his head lowered, "Your Excellency, I've already contacted Blood Shaman. He has also agreed to fight, but he wants 10 divine fruits. Give them to him." A familiar voice sounded from the palace. He was the one who had presided over the cube battle and changed the rules. Yes. The warrior stood up and was about to leave when he heard another voice from the palace. "How's the situation with the other gods? They have already agreed to lend out the body cleansing stone, but the price is very high. They are still negotiating," the warrior answered. "Didn't the Dragon King stop them?" The voice from the palace said again. "No," the warrior answered. "Go down. Tell them that the body cleansing stone must be brought back." Yes. After the warrior left, a godlike man sat on the couch in the palace with a frown. "Your Excellency Tion, why must we have the body cleansing stone?" Now, the various monarchs are already communicating. I believe there will be an outcome soon. When the time comes, that person will be kicked out of the rankings like you. Why did you pay such a huge price to obtain the body cleansing stone? An enchanting woman coiled around the man's body. Her jade-like head rested on his chest as she spoke softly. "It's just planning ahead. We can't let existences like Ya and human obtain the dimensional wheel, much less give them a chance to stand beside Wang Mingyuan," Tion said indifferently. "It's fine if he's kicked out. Otherwise, the body cleansing stone will naturally be of use. How can he not be kicked out? He's just a human. How can he resist the cube's rules? Furthermore, with Blood Shaman restraining his companion beast, I'm afraid he will lose the next round. Your Excellency Tion, you don't have to worry about a mere human," the woman said. Tion didn't say a word. He only used his fingers to fiddle with the woman's beautiful hair that resembled a long river in the night. His eyes were deep and unfathomable. "Am I worrying too much? That fellow is also a human. If I don't worry too much, I'm afraid a second or third person will appear." The figure of the gentle-looking man surfaced in Tion's mind. When the hour was almost up and everyone thought that human was about to obtain first place, the cube suddenly lit up. Someone had issued a challenge. Everyone looked at the cube screen, but the name they saw was very unfamiliar. They had never seen it before. It's really him. When Zhou saw the word blood shaman, he couldn't help but be grateful for Sheng's timely intelligence. Although he might not be at a disadvantage without intelligence, it was better to be prepared in advance than to think of a solution at the last minute. Without any hesitation, Zhou agreed to the challenge. No matter who came, he had to do his best to obtain first place. As long as he wasn't kicked out like Ya, he definitely wouldn't let the Guardian become the King of Earth. Zhou and Blood Shaman appeared on the stage at the same time. Dressed in blood-colored armor, Blood Shaman made a shocking move. He reached out and slashed his palm, causing blood to flow out like a fountain. Chapter 1100. When the blood fell into the air, it turned into specks of bloody light and dissipated. The existence of the blood could no longer be seen with the naked eye, but the entire arena seemed to be covered in a faint layer of bloody light. Zhou extended his palm as a red glow appeared on the blue crystal bracer. It was faint and inconspicuous. He summoned Night Immaculate Sword and realized that his mental connection with it had weakened significantly. This made Zhou understand that Blood Shaman's blood sacrifice technique was the power to seal companion beasts. Even Truth Listener's connection with Zhou had weakened significantly. From the looks of it, evil nullification couldn't restrain such sealing powers. The heaven-opening scripture of the highest elder had long been engraved, but it didn't seem to be very useful. Even the heaven-opening scripture of the highest elder and evil nullification can't restrain it. It's not a taboo rule, nor is it a curse. What kind of power is this? Zhou thought to himself, but he didn't stop moving. He planned on summoning the companion beast that had previously fought. Everyone watched the companion beasts appear in excitement, imagining that they could see another huge battle between companion beasts. However, Zhou had only summoned a few companion beasts. Before he could even summon all 6 demon blood true dragons, he saw a sanguine glow emit from Blood Shaman's eyes, dyeing the entire arena blood red. The companion beast that Zhou had summoned suddenly flew back to his body and returned to their tattoo state. Even Truth Listener was no exception. What happened? Why did you summon your companion beast back? It doesn't look like it was summoned back by itself. It seems like it was sent back by the power of the Blood Wizard. Don't tell me Blood Shaman's power prevents people from summoning companion beasts. If that's the case, he'll be in danger. It looks like that's the case. That beautiful fairy-like companion beast didn't appear either. It can even seal a Terrorgrade companion beast? Isn't this too fake? Without companion beasts, how are we humans to fight? Blood Shaman's ability is aimed at us humans. In front of him, all humans will become vulnerable. It's too terrifying. If he can't use companion beasts, does he still have a chance of defeating Blood Shaman? I'm afraid it'll be very difficult, unless he has the same combat ability as Ya. Everyone discussed as Zhou attempted to summon Banana Fairy, but unfortunately, she was also sealed by Blood Shaman's power. He couldn't summon her. The power of Blood Shaman is definitely a great enemy of humanity, Zhou thought as he looked at Blood Shaman. However, Zhou also realized that Blood Shaman's power wasn't only targeted at him. Even Blood Shaman didn't summon any companion beasts, nor did he have any equipment transformed from companion beasts. Clearly, even he was restricted by this power and couldn't use companion beasts. Blood Shaman stood amidst the blood, his armor exuding a strong smell of blood. He looked like a bloodthirsty demon god. There's no need to try anymore. No companion beast can be summoned during the blood sacrifice ritual. It's the same for me. Blood Shaman looked at Zhou and continued. It's still not too late to back out. Now that Blood Shaman had personally admitted it, everyone knew that their previous guess was right. Blood Shaman's abilities were simply the natural enemy of humans. There's actually such power? Isn't this too ridiculous? With this kind of power, how can humans survive in the future? This kind of power is too unfair to humans. Child, you are still too naive. There's no fairness in this world. This person is really in danger this time. He can't use his companion beasts. His combat strength has been greatly weakened. Zhou looked at Blood Shaman and said calmly, I'll naturally retreat when I'm about to die. Blood Shaman didn't say anything else. However, the sanguine light on his body intensified and turned into blood-colored flames that enveloped his entire body like a blood shadow. Terrorgrade? Zhou was slightly surprised when he saw the changes in Blood Shaman's strength. He wasn't surprised that Blood Shaman was at the Terrorgrade. It would be strange if he wasn't at the Terrorgrade, if he could even seal Banana Fairy. What surprised him was that although Blood Shaman had already transformed into his terror form, his body didn't completely disappear. Ordinary people could still see his figure. Only some special terror forms would have such an effect, such as the gigantification of Jade Rabbit. Now is your last chance to live. If I attack, I won't show any mercy. Blood Shaman floated in the air like a blood shadow demon god, illuminating the entire arena blood red. Wang Lu clasped her hands together worriedly. Although Zhou was very strong, how could he fight the Terrorgrade Blood Shaman without the help of his companion beasts? Others thought that Zhou was a human who had fused with a guardian, but Wang Lu and company knew very well that Zhou hadn't fused with a guardian at all. When they parted, Zhou was only at the epic stage. Although they didn't know what method Zhou had used to get on the rankings, it was already impressive that he could advance to the mythical stage. It was impossible for him to advance to the Terrorgrade in such a short period of time. Among the spectators, there were many who had the same worry. Since you are standing here, you are an enemy. Why would I show mercy? Zhou said indifferently. He was determined to defeat all humans with guardians. Unless he was at the end of his rope, he definitely wouldn't give up easily. That's right. I was wrong. After Blood Shaman said that, he transformed into a blood shadow and charged at Zhou. His hand slashed down like a blade. His speed was already so fast that ordinary humans couldn't keep up with him. Even if he didn't vanish after his terror transformation, ordinary people couldn't see his movements. However, Zhou could clearly see that although Blood Shaman was very fast, he wasn't much faster than a top mythical creature. In fact, his speed couldn't even compare to some top speed-type mythical creatures. Zhou understood that this meant that Blood Shaman's stats weren't very high. Perhaps he was like Banana Fairy, having just suddenly reached 82. Therefore, he wasn't at a disadvantage in terms of stats. His speed attribute had already broken through 70 points. However, Zhou didn't underestimate Blood Shaman because of this. The other party's terror transformation definitely had its uses. Although their stats were about the same, he couldn't treat him as a mythical creature. With a wave of his hand, a white wooden club appeared in his hand. This wooden club wasn't transformed from a companion beast. Instead, Zhou had picked it up from the mountain god who had sacrificed the white deer and condensed the blood oxypetalum. Apart from the white wooden club, he had also picked up a metal disc that looked like a gong. There was no way he could use a companion beast now, and Bamboo Blade was too eye-catching. Others would recognize him at a glance, so he had no choice but to use it. Condensing his aura, Zhou used the white wooden club as a sword and charged at Blood Shaman with an intense sword beam. He wanted to see how strong a Terrorgrade Blood Shaman was. With absolute defense armor, Zhou didn't need to worry that Blood Shaman could instantly kill him. Chapter 1101. Clang. The tip of the wooden club collided with Blood Shaman's handblade. Zhou immediately felt a tremendous force assault him as he flew backward with the club. However, when Zhou was in midair, he had already used the momentum to dissipate the force. He was like an immortal flying backward in the wind. When he landed, the force had been completely dissipated. Zhou roughly knew that Blood Shaman's strength was indeed stronger than his, but it wasn't by much. He was probably in his early 80s. However, up to now, Zhou still hadn't figured out what ability Blood Shaman obtained after his terror transformation. Only a Terrorgrade power could kill a Terrorgrade, but Blood Shaman's Terror transformation didn't seem as powerful as he imagined. However, Blood Shaman sized up the wooden club in Zhou Wen's hand as though he was puzzled. He blocked it. The spectators saw that Zhou Wen had blocked Blood Shaman's strike. Although he was at a disadvantage, he wasn't seriously injured. Their emotions turned mixed. It was naturally a good thing that Human could fight Blood Shaman, but this also indirectly meant that Human couldn't be pure human. This was because it was impossible for pure humans to advance to the mythical stage, much less fight a Terrorgrade Guardian. This disappointed many people who originally had fantasies that Human might be pure human. Although half-humans could also be considered humans, many people couldn't let it go. They yearned for pure humans to step onto the stage and compete with those dimensional creatures. He really isn't a pure human? Li Benyi couldn't hide the disappointment on his face. From the looks of it, I was overthinking things. How can a pure human make it onto the rankings? Xiao Luchuan was somewhat disappointed as well. He really hoped that Human was pure human. There were many people like them, and they couldn't hide the disappointment on their faces. In the arena, Zhou Wen unleashed his sword art and Blood Shaman's battle. His sword art was all-encompassing and compatible with 3,000 sword intents. He could use any one of them to fight Blood Shaman. As long as he didn't switch at will, it was difficult for anyone to recognize him. To Zhou Wen's surprise, Blood Shaman seemed much weaker than he had imagined. He didn't have the suppression that a Terrorgrade should have. Blood Shaman was faster and stronger than him, but there was a limit to his strength. As for what abilities his Terror form had, Zhou Wen still hadn't discovered them. As for combat ability and techniques, although Blood Shaman was very strong, Zhou Wen wasn't weaker than him. As such, Blood Shaman didn't display the horror of the Terrorgrade. Could it be that Blood Shaman's Terror transformation ability is just to seal companion beasts? Zhou Wen felt that it was very likely. After all, being able to seal all companion beasts was a very transformative ability. However, Zhou Wen vaguely felt that Blood Shaman's Terror transformation wasn't just that. Suddenly, Zhou Wen realized the problem. This was because Blood Shaman seemed to pay special attention to the white wooden stick in his hand during the battle. He could not help but think to himself, could it be that Blood Shaman's inability to unleash his abilities is related to this wooden stick? Is this wooden stick really that powerful? Its owner doesn't seem to be very strong. Truth Listener didn't spend much effort to kill it back then. Zhou Wen felt that it was somewhat impossible, but apart from that, he couldn't figure out why Blood Shaman couldn't unleash the combat strength a Terrorgrade should have. Zhou Wen hadn't taken the initiative to attack Blood Shaman because he knew that only a Terrorgrade power could injure a Terrorgrade. Therefore, he believed that it was useless even if he attacked. All he did was block. However, now that he had other thoughts, he immediately switched from defense to offense. He used the heart-defying sword and aimed it at Blood Shaman's vital points. To Zhou Wen's surprise, Blood Shaman really began to dodge, not daring to let the white wooden stick injure his body. Holy *T, Blood Shaman is really afraid of this wooden stick. Zhou Wen was pleasantly surprised. He never expected that something he had casually put away back then would be of such great use. Furthermore, he couldn't tell what was so special about the wooden stick. What's this wooden stick? Also, that metal disc can't be something good, right? Zhou Wen thought greedily. With this change, Zhou Wen's attacks became sharper. With the deterrence of the white wooden stick, he suppressed Blood Shaman. Instead, Blood Shaman began to slowly retreat. Is that Blood Shaman at the Terrorgrade? Why does it look so weak? It's not that Blood Shaman is weak. It's that he's too strong. That sword art is simply godly. But his body looks very normal. He doesn't become strange like those Terror-transformed creatures. Is he at the Terrorgrade? He's definitely at the Terrorgrade. Otherwise, how can he suppress a Terrorgrade Blood Shaman? I don't think so. According to my experience after watching for so long, the bodies of those Terrorgrade creatures will have obvious changes. They might even make us unable to see them, but they're still made of flesh and blood. They're still wearing ordinary clothes. From this point of view, he shouldn't have used the power of the Terrorgrade. He might not even be at the Terrorgrade at all. Aren't you overthinking things to be able to suppress Blood Shaman if he's not at the terror grade? People were divided into two factions. One faction felt that he wasn't at the terror grade, while the other felt that he was at the terror grade. Even among the 6 families, many people held opposing opinions. The battle hadn't ended, but the media had already begun a war of words. He's definitely not at the terror grade. How can he suppress a terror grade Blood Shaman if he's not at the terror grade? Our family is strong. A mythical creature can crush a terror grade creature. Aren't you convinced? ZZ, have you ever seen a mythical creature fight a terror grade creature? Even you can only fight Juyue after breaking through to the terror grade. Please wake up and stop fantasizing. Yeah is yeah, and humans are humans. You can't beat a mythical creature, but we humans can. As the two factions were embroiled in a heated debate, someone weakly posted, "Is it possible for humans to be pure humans?" Without his companion beasts, he's only wearing human clothes and an ordinary helmet. He doesn't seem like a half-human like ya. Such words were quickly despised by both factions. Do you have any common sense? It's impossible for humans to break through to the mythical stage by themselves. Brother, although I also hope that humans are pure humans, it's really impossible from the looks of it. In the ancient temple on the plateau, Jing Daoxian also looked at the white wooden club in Zhou Wen's hand. He frowned as though he was thinking about something. After a while, he muttered to himself, "That wooden club. Could it be the morning rod of impermanence ghost? Where did this punk get it from?" Chapter 1102. Heavenly God's Council. Inside Di Tian's palace, the enchanting woman looked at the battle taking place inside the cube, and a look of surprise appeared on her beautiful face. What is that wooden stick? It can actually resist the Blood Wizard's blood transformation power? Di Tian said calmly. It's a terror item with an extreme attribute. Furthermore, it has reached the level of a physical weapon. How can that level of blood transformation injure it? If that thing was in the hands of its real owner, Blood Shaman would have died a long time ago. In that case, it's impossible for Blood Shaman to win. We can only hope that the kings of the various races can reach an agreement and kick that person out, the woman said. There's no need for that. Even though Blood Shaman no longer has a chance, he still gave us an important piece of information, Di Tian said slowly. What important information? The woman was puzzled. Although I don't know what guardian that person is fused with, I can now confirm that he hasn't reached the terror grade. All he relies on is that terror grade companion beast and the corporeal terror weapon in his hand. As long as we can resolve these two things, he won't be able to withstand a single blow from a terror grade, Di Tian said casually. I'm afraid it won't be easy, right? His terror transformation companion beast was too powerful. Ordinary terror grade creatures were no match for it. If Blood Shaman didn't restrain it, which guardian would be her match if the companion beast could be summoned? However, Blood Shaman is afraid of that wooden stick. He has no chance of winning, the woman said. Since one blood wizard doesn't stand a chance, I'll add a few more. Di Tian stood up slowly. The woman immediately understood what Di Tian wanted to do and said worriedly, "Sir, changing the rules of the cube without the consent of the various races doesn't seem to be a good idea, right? There's no need to change the rules. As the host of this cube battle, I still have this little bit of authority." As Di Tian spoke, he took a step forward, traversed through space, and headed towards the cube. Just as everyone was watching excitedly, Zhou Wen kept attacking while Blood Shaman was retreating. However, they suddenly saw a distorted light descend from the void. Their hearts skipped a beat. Sure enough, the distorted light and shadow that had appeared several times before once again appeared in the sky above the cube arena. What does he want now? Don't tell me you want to change the rules because you can't beat them. Other than changing the rules, what else can they do? Just kick him out of the game. You've already done that once. You can't be so shameless. Of course humans can't be so shameless. Unfortunately, they're not humans. It's a beast. Everyone was angered and annoyed, mocking and ridiculing Di Tian loudly. Sadly, It was useless. Their voices couldn't be transmitted into Tion's body. Tion couldn't hear them at all. Even if he could hear them, he wouldn't care and would only kill them with a single slap. Tion looked down at the arena and said like a god who ruled over everything. In order to determine the number one as soon as possible, the top 10 creatures on the leaderboard can immediately enter the arena to fight. The losers will be eliminated immediately. The previous rules remain the same. Every creature only has one chance to challenge. After saying that, Tion tore through the sky and returned to the palace of Heavenly God's Council. After people heard this, they subconsciously looked at the ranking list. Then, someone immediately cursed. F*CKU. Apart from the people in the top 10, the rest are all guardians. Isn't letting them in just to let them gang up on people? Shameless. The eldest uncle of the Zhang family had a fiery temper, so he cursed out loud. Can you be any more shameless? Everyone was furious. They wished they could spit and drown all the creatures of the dimension. However, cursing aside, several of the top 10 guardians had already entered the arena. In just a moment, 8 of the top 10 guardians had entered the arena, including Zhou 1. Only one of the top 10 guardians hadn't participated in the battle. On an island overseas, a cultured and elegant young man was about to board the cube when he suddenly retreated. A figure appeared where the young man had been as though it had teleported. It was the Terragray guardian, Cave Era. It's best you stay here and don't go anywhere, Cave Era said to the young man. Why? The young man wasn't angry as he asked with a smile. Because you can't go on stage, Cave Era said. I'm also in the top 10. Why can't I go on stage? The young man asked again. Do you want to kill that person after you go on stage? Or do you want to help him? Cave Era asked. Help him, the young man answered. Therefore, you can't go on stage, Cave Era said. What if I insist on going? The smile on the young man's face vanished as he became serious. Defeat me and you can go, Cave Era said. The young man suddenly laughed. Sis, stop joking. Your guardian is already at the Terror grade, but my guardian hasn't advanced to the Terror grade. How can I defeat you? Then stay here obediently and be a spectator, Cave Era said. All right. The young man walked towards Cave Era, but his eyes were fixed on the cube screen. Sis, do you think that person has a chance of defeating the guardians? There's no chance. Before Cave Era could finish speaking, the young man suddenly exploded. He pressed one hand on Cave Era's shoulder, and a flower vine wrapped around Cave Era's body at the same time. In an instant, Cave Era was wrapped up like a mummy. Taking advantage of this moment, the young man rushed towards the cube, hoping to enter the cube's arena. However, just as he rushed to the cube, he saw Cave Era standing on it. Sure, defeat me, Cave Era said coldly as she looked at the young man. Sis, do you have to do this? The young man sighed. Defeat me or watch the battle from here, Cave Era said expressionlessly. The young man stared at Cave Era as the gentleness on his face vanished. He softly said, Immortal, burial. Petals surged out of his body and gradually condensed in a flower armor that enveloped his slender body. In the arena, the 8 guardians had already surrounded Zhou 1 from different directions. There were guardians blocking his path from all directions. Their goal was already very clear. Just as people had guessed, they had no intention of engaging in a chaotic battle. Their only target was human. Furthermore, they had already received news from the dimension that this person wasn't at the Terror grade at all. He was only at the mythical stage. They had already guessed this from Zhou Wen's battle with Blood Shaman. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.